Well, good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back. George Morgan here at your service. It's PSGL, it's Wednesday night, it's Spain tonight as well. Lots on the table, lots of battling. The title contest is still alive and kicking. And Jack, it's only taken us 10 rounds. We're on the 11th. It's all to play for.
Boromant goes on the inside and takes the lead on the final lap of the race. Now it's side by side between Boromant and Ronnar, but Boromant's got the inside.
Star here in this phenomenal race. Cameron Dowd looking to take P2 in his very first PSGL F1 PC race. Incredible to say the least. You see that Putin still lead. 1.5 seconds. DRS is the name. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. It's a pleasure to be back here for round 2 of our brand new season. Only one round in, still many questions to be asked, but already we have seen, no doubt, some very gripping racing. And I'm sure we'll see some more tonight as well. Joining me, George Morgan, in the commentary box is the one, the only Dan Field. And Dan, after a mind-blowing display from Danny Beresnay last time, but also some immense efforts from like Brendan Lee, Yano Otmir's thrown in as well, not to mention Otis Lawrence, one of the standouts too. There were plenty of things to discuss, plenty of matters to digest, but we're coming here tonight with still once again, huge questions to what's going to happen throughout the course of this season. You know, just because we're one round in, just because Beresnay is a race winner, doesn't mean to say that's going to be the trend, does it?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, coming into tonight, once again, George, it is a mystery round, so no driver has had any opportunity to prepare. So it's really luck of the draw. If you get a track that you're good at, maybe. If you don't get one that you're so good at as well, really could play to how your race is going to go. We just don't know at this point how tonight is going to plan out. But George, I am so excited to see it.
Yeah, a lot of excitement. Let's take you through the driver lineup for this evening. A few changes that have come in at the very last minute. Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhaar. Brendan Lee, very impressive last time out when we went racing at Portimao with Ronhaar alongside him, the dynamic duo at Sauber. Jed Norgrove and Yoni Tormler line up for the AlphaTauri team. Luke Smith and Ruben Pedreño marking a return back for Alpine. New faces at Aston Martin. No surprise to see Duncan Hoffland in the car. Of course, the official reserve and development driver at Aston Martin has been there now for a number of seasons. Joost Noordijk, though, steps up alongside him. Istvan Pukki back in the car with Jack West. A late entry into tonight because Dylan Warren has had some pedal problems, so he doesn't feature, but Jack West in place of Dylan Warren. Alfie Butcher returns, of course, the current Haas F1 esports driver. Alongside him, Ben Chabo-Conyi, who's lately very impressed in the Ironman League that WR have been doing as well. So Ben Chabo-Conyi lines up alongside him, and a very vibrant talent that has competed at the top level time and time again. Otis Lawrence, vastly successful at Portimao as well, and widely considered a hot prospect when, of course, he comes of age and is able to enter F1 esports. Remember, he was our pole sitter back at Portimao last time out, and alongside Wilson Hughes once again. Yano Otmir and Jake Benham, they return once again in the Mercedes outfit with Freddie Rasmussen and Danny Beresnay looking to go 2 from 2 here, Danny. We spoke about the controversial idea that him driving a Red Bull, despite being part of Mercedes, it did not afflict any negatives upon him, though, because he went ahead and took victory back at Portimao. Freddie Rasmussen as well, right in the thick of it in the closing stages. Alvaro Carreton, he is back as well with Will Lewis alongside him too. No Ishmael Fassi this weekend. Will Lewis is going to look to impress in the Williams team, but they're already out and about on track. And guess what, Dan? It's Imola. We're off to the heart of Emilia-Romagna. We're here in Italy. Used to be known as the San Marino Grand Prix. And tight and twisty, a roller coaster of sorts. Once again, the elevation joins us this season, but I think it's going to be thrilling nonetheless.
And this track is very, very punishing, George, with a very little runoff outside of the exits of the corners. It means, if you get anything wrong, you could be sent into a nasty surprise. But we got a few drivers out on circuit at the minute. Typically, George, at the beginning of the session, of course, they're all going to head out on the intermediates, which is what we are seeing thus far.
Yeah, intermediate tyres currently out on the cards right now. There is one driver, though, that is setting fast times, and that is Freddie Rasmussen. Luke Smith, though, purple in the second sector. out of anybody who's out on track, but obviously not setting a representative time. It doesn't look like he's going to waste much more time, though, because obviously they're all going to be watching as Freddie Rasmussen makes his way through. Jack West posts the fastest lap so far with an intermediate tyre time of a 1:18.308. Here comes Freddie Rasmussen, though, a driver that has been so often the bridesmaid, never the bride when it comes to F1 Esports Championships. But nonetheless, his consistent record stands out in amongst the very best at a 1:16.498. Enlists himself at the very top of the order on the soft tyres. Of course, still very much early days at this stage, but I can tell you someone who has just gone fastest in the first sector, and it's Joni Toomala in the AlphaTauri.
And Yano Imola, he's very impressive in this AlphaTauri, it seems, and it's good to see that he's still able to compete at this very top level. But it's also very interesting to see, George, that all of the Red Bull drivers of sorts are going on to the set of the softs very early on. Freddie Rasmussen, Yano Imola, and Jed Norgrove, all of them are part of that the Red Bull scheme. Here comes Yano Imola up towards the line. Is he going to best his teammate? Indeed, he will at 14.8, blowing Freddie Rasmussen's time out of the water. Very interesting, though, considering how early they've come out on this tyre.
Yep, and I have to say, ushering in the deltas, Freddie Rasmussen doing it again as well. First sector, he's already blown away his initial lap, and has just ushered in fact, 2 purple sectors again at 23.728, which vastly is superior to that of Yoni Toomala. So I'm expecting this to be a stunning lap here from Freddie. A statement lap. Has done 2 fast runs on this compound of tyre. Goes fastest of all again, and well over 0.8 of a second quicker than Yoni Toomala this time around as well. 12 minutes to go, and it's Rasmussen out in front. A 1:14.023, but let's wait and see. Plenty of other cars to come in and register lap times. Danny Berejnay now making his way out onto the circuit. Of course, Freddie Rasmussen's teammate here in this championship, but obviously they'll be kept at arm's length, won't they, Dan?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, being a part of the of different esports schemes, they're not really going to be working together all that much. Of course, last week we saw some great team play between both Yano Otmir and Danny Berejnay, despite driving for different teams here in PSGL. Of course, they are both a part of Mercedes Esports, but Danny Berejnay really looking forward to seeing how he does this evening and whether he can go 2 for 2 at the start of this season.
Yeah, Brendan Lee now making his way through the next chicane. Of course, then he'll venture down towards the Ravazza, coming off the throttle though, just allowing the faster cars through. Now, there's a little bit of a complex issue that for those that are on the intermediate tyres, of course, they do run them in this case because obviously they want to try and make sure that they can register times, give themselves a delta as well without having to waste a set of softs. And at the same time, just to check that all the technicals are working, Brendan Lee now making his way into the pits and no doubt going to look to try and put a set of slick tyres on himself. Danny Berejnay, though, making his way around the circuit. Looks like he's on a bit of a slow one at this stage and not quite in a position where he can necessarily usher in his fastest run. As you can see, a 30.2 in that first sector, which is well off the pace where we're seeing the top times right now. So it's Rasmussen on top. No one else registering a fast run just yet. Jake Benham is venturing out to the circuit, as is Alvaro Carreton. Great to see Carreton back as well, Dan, because of course the Spaniard has featured as part of the Williams outfit for so long now, and I hazard a guess, in fact, ever since we first started PC F1 here at PSGL back in season 27.
You'd be right about that, George. Alvaro's been a part of this Williams esports program since he debuted in F1 esports all the way back in F1 2018. It feels like such a long time ago that Alvaro Carreton was a rookie, so it's fantastic to see that he's sticking with Williams through all of this and how they're still backing him even so long into his career. And now he's got Ismail Fassi alongside him. Of course, not here this evening. It is Will Lewis taking Ismail Fassi's seat this evening. I believe Ismail's having a few issues with his rig at the minute, so unfortunately he's not been able to partake in PSGL. But yeah, Alvaro Carreton, very happy to see him still at the Williams team, and I can't wait to see what he can do tonight.
Yeah, and he's got a very vibrant teammate alongside him in Will Lewis, who has been very much part of the Williams development fold in esports this season, as we see Jake Benham go a little squirrely on the exit, heading out of the very fast Piratella section through Acqua Minerale, and he'll then make the move up the hill before then tackling the Variante Alta as well at the chicane. Very tight. And ushering himself over the sausage curbs, then heading down the latter part of this lap. 9 minutes and 10 to go. And the All-Star looking to try and usher in a positive result. A former race winner here in PSGL at the very highest order as well. Actually won at the very start of the season, I think only a couple of seasons ago. But Benham opted to come into the pits and not happy with that. In fact, invalidating on his run in as well. So not ideal at all. Yano is still yet to go out as well. Wilson Hughes, unfortunately, that confirms the restart because he's got a 5-place grid penalty after a collision with Caraton. And Caraton, incidentally, out of the session. Drama.
Something's happened there between Wilson Hughes and Alvaro Caraton. I'm trying to ride on board with Freddie Rasmussen to see what might have happened to the Williams, but unfortunately his car's despawned, so something has gone on there between Wilson Hughes and Alvaro Caraton. I wonder if that's one for the stewards to look at, but Wilson Hughes has a 5-place grid penalty for that collision. George, of course, normally we see it when it happens with drivers blocking each other and impeding each other on outlaps and stuff, which of course shouldn't be a part of the game, but if this is an actual crash, maybe that's to be warranted.
Yeah, outrageous. Ruben Pedreña, though, has gone against the grain of everybody here and has gone purple in the first sector already. So 1:18.043. And we're within the final 8 minutes now of the session. Still plenty of time, though, to usher in. You'd probably question that some of the drivers might be able to squeeze in 2 more laps before the very end. And Pedreña now is registered purple in the second sector. 25.4 after that 23.7 in sector 1. Incidentally, quite distinctly faster than Freddie Rasmussen right at the top as well. So the track is improving. Plenty of improvements to be found. Improvements found as well by Danny Berejne, who's gone purple in the second sector. So let's wait and see. Pedreña goes fastest. So it's a 1:13.884, our first 1:13 of the session. And in comes Danny Berejne as well. He's going to make his way through the final corner here as he now ushers his way around turn 15. Around the kink in the course and heading across the line. Berejne makes it a Red Bull second and third. But at this stage, Pedreña hits the heights with Benjamin Conyi, the reserve, enters the fold. He's now second in this classification.
Got another reserve as well in the final sector. Jack West is coming off the exit of the final corner now. We'll see where he can notch this. A very last minute change for Jack West to be put on this grid tonight. And he's come home in P5. It's decent to start at 14.1, but definitely could be a lot better as Brendan Lee to the line. A 1:13.827. And Otis Lawrence, welcome back to PSGL F1. And also notch himself into P1 there.
Yeah, he's been splendid, hasn't he, in terms of his raw pace and form. One of the greats, certainly so far in PSGL, as Freddie Rasmussen goes to the top now with a 1:13.622. So there we go. The time's coming in thick and indeed fast, as now we're seeing them make their way around. Of course, at this stage now, Yano, one of the very few yet to set a lap on the board. Both Mercedes, in fact. Jake Benham, remember, invalidating his previous run. This is Yano's first official run here, leaving it to the very last minute as well. Hasn't ushered in an early time at all, but goes 6th fastest, and that will assure safety. I suppose the one positive you can take from this at this stage, Dan, is that he hasn't used as many tyres as anyone else has in this session.
Yeah, very interesting to see that the likes of Freddie Rasmussen, Jed Norgrove and Yoni Tormala all utilise a set of the softs at the very beginning of the session. Normally it is the intermediates just to check that all your equipment is working fine and you can get Delta on the board. So Freddie Rasmussen, Jed Norgrove and Yoni Tormala, if they were to find themselves, George, in the latter part of qualifying, then they might have some issues with actually getting that final run done.
Yeah, Thomas Ronhaar now coming out to the final 2 corners as well. He's going to make his way down through towards the start-finish line as ushered in a purple second sector, and he's just gone fastest of all with a 1:13.617. Fabulous time there from Thomas Ronhaar. Jake Benham as well, looking very sharp out on track. The first sector looking reasonable, in fact, around a 10th, well, within a 10th of a second off Ronhaar's first sector, as well as a 25.4 in Sector 2, only 2/10 off Ronhaar's personal best and fastest second sector. Enough for 11th fastest, Jake Benham, but enough for safety should it stay like this before the end of the timer.
It's okay for now for Jake Benham, but he definitely will need to come out again and do another lap here. I would imagine not many drivers are actually safe at the minute. Will Lewis is the driver that's first in the drop zone on a 14.5. So he's about 4/10 of a second off of, well, I guess, sorry, 5/10 6/10 off of Jake Benham. Got there in the end. So definitely, if Will Lewis finds a lot of time on that lap, then some drivers ahead might need to be worried, especially with how close things are at the minute, George. Look at how many are on a 1 minute 13.8 and a 13.9. Just fractions of a second is all it takes for you to be into Q2 or get knocked out here.
Yeah, well, Duncan Hoffland is looking to elevate himself out of the drop zone, 18th place, and this will be his first time registered onto the board. How about that? 4th fastest with a purple 3rd sector from Big Dunk. What a fabulous time set by Hoffland, and has actually managed to register himself within half a 10th. In fact, he's managed to register himself 35 thousandths off the top, where Thomas Ronhaar currently operates at the very highest order. But take a look at these deltas in the top 4 here, Dan. This is outrageous. 5 thousandths between Freddie Rasmussen and Thomas Ronhaar. Minimal between the pair. 13 thousandths separating as well Otis Lawrence and Thomas Ronhaar up at the top. So the top 3 in 13 thousandths. Absolutely outrageous. And then, of course, you've got Duncan Hoffland, who has just brought the top 4 to within 35 thousandths. That is how competitive PSGL has become. And we all knew, we all believed that this would be the most competitive season we would see in PSGL, and also as a consequence F1 Esports as well. We're being proved right here. Otis Lawrence, so confident that he's going to retire right now.
I think he's well in his right to do that. I'd imagine the top 5 are all going to be safe in this session. It's a question of whether the likes of Luke Smith, Brendan Lee and Yano Otmir all decide to come for an outlap. Ruben Pedreño has decided that he is not safe on that 13.884, so he's within a 10th of everyone ahead of him, up towards Istvan Pukki. So really, these guys should be thinking about maybe fitting on a fresh set of the tyres just to make sure that you can make it into the next session. I can actually see some Mercedes activity. Yano Otmir is indeed coming out on circuit, as is Istvan Pukki, who I believe has got a different name. George, I'm not sure if you're seeing that on your side of things.
Carter Verone, by any chance.
Carter Verone. Not sure where this name has come from, but I'd assume that's Istvan Pukki.
Yes, I believe it is. Yes, Pukki is lined up for the Ferrari team. This is not a new name that we have suddenly seen spring up from nowhere, though it would be an extraordinary story if that was the case. But if it is indeed Pukki, that is something we've come to expect from him as a driver, certainly at the highest level, and has sort of risen dramatically over the course of the last year or so. Brendan Lee retiring as well, obviously content with that 7th place. Duncan Hoffland also retiring. I think he has every given right to, given the fact that he is well within where he needs to be in order to qualify, as we now see Joost Noordijk making his way through the final 2 corners, and will then commence his final flying lap here at this point. So Joost Noordijk stepping in, of course, with Fabrizio Donoso missing out this time around. Obviously Donoso not having the best of rounds last time out, and neither did Simon Weigang either, as Noordijk makes his way through Tamburello, trying to glue himself into every single apex. The very, very attractive track here at the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari that has seen certainly tragedy as well as absolutely iconic racing that has been brought to the forefront through Formula One and also junior single-seaters around this 3.1 mile circuit. It was generally considered a 63-lap race over 100% distance, but this time around we're going 50% here, as we customarily do here in PSGL, as we now swoop through Acqua Minerale. And Joost Noordijk now powering out and heading down towards the Variante Alto. He's going to have to try and keep this one pinned now. Be wary of the curbs on the inset and the outset. They're so raised, could upset the balance off the car, but it does not concern Joost Noordijk, who after a very successful run on the PlayStation platform, then transitioned into PC, and has been constantly contesting against the very best as he now makes his way through the final corner. I can tell you this though, Danny Berejnay purple in the first sector now already, so this is looking like a rapid lap from him, but Joost Noordijk unable to register an improvement. He's invalidated his run, but all eyes on the prize here for Danny Berejnay. He is nearly 1.5 tenths up here, Dan.
And Danny Berejnay in towards Ravazza 1 and 2. Joost Noordijk's time would have been quick enough to get himself ahead of Istvan Pukki, but all eyes are indeed on Danny Berejnay coming across the line now. What's he going to do? Where can our race winner go from last week? He goes to the top of the order at 13.604, nestles himself very nicely into Q2.
Fabulous time from Danny Berejnay. Race winner last time out. Has the fuel to the fire? Has the fire been lit under the backside of Danny Berejnay? As now Luke Smith makes his way towards the line, unfortunately invalidating through the final sector. Absolutely ruthless because he was purple in that second sector. I tell you what, it's all coming out here. Here comes Jake Benham, 9th fastest for the All-Star. He's got every chance here. Joost Noordijk has slowed up to a stop heading through Aqua Minerale. So he will not be improving. He will be out of qualifying, but he's not alone. We're going to lose as well Will Lewis, Alvaro Carreton, Alfie Butcher, as well as Jack West. Some big names lost. Obviously, Jack West coming in last minute. It's quite an ask to jump in at the very last minute, even though it is a mystery race. But nonetheless, I'm sure he is disappointed. And no doubt, especially after putting in that stellar sector, such as what Joost Noordijk did, he's going to be absolutely seething at the fact that he invalidated that final sector here, Dan.
Absolutely. Really unfortunate to lose Joost Noordijk from this session. But how about that from Danny Berejnay, getting himself ahead of Thomas Ronhaar at the very top of the order. A fantastic time as well from Istvan Pukki and George. I'm going to turn the attention to the gaps to the leader. Jake Benham is in 9th position, and he's less than 3/4 of a tenth off of Danny Berejnay.
Well, let's look at it, shall we? Here you go, folks. Take a look at those deltas. All the way down to 9th place, Jake Benham, 74 thousandths off the top. So you take it all the way down to P9, all of them within 3/4 of a tenth. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. This is why this is the most competitive league in the world. Look at this. Danny Berejnay, your fastest man, with Thomas Ronhaar in second. We then have Istvan Pukki in third. Good qualifying session, actually, for Pukki, with Frederick Rasmussen, who showed the early pace, is now 4th fastest. Of course, a very good showing. Otis Lawrence also confirming once again that he is also a very fast character after going pole last time out. Yano Otmir in 6th. Jed Norgrove, very good performance in 7th. Duncan Hoffland, a welcome return for him as well in 8th place. Jake Benham in 9th. Ben Chabo-Konyi in 10th. We then have Luke Smith, Brendan Lee, Ruben Pedreño, Wilson Hughes and Yoni Tormler. We do lose, though, Jack West, Will Lewis, Joost Noordijk, Alvaro Carreton and Alfie Butcher after not setting a time at all. So some drama already here at Danfield, but I think the ultimate drama is what happened to Alvaro Carreton.
I don't know. I asked a question about it in the Discord chat. And Louis DuPont, of course, Kryptonite said, same as Qatar last season. Now, George...
we remember what happened at Qatar last season.
I don't. I think you need to remind me and maybe some of the viewers there.
It was. Remember, folks, I believe it was Jake Benham who, unfortunately, during an outlap, he was there just warming up his tyres and unfortunately took out... I can't remember who it was that got caught out, but there is a highlight, a clip that you can find on YouTube of the actual moment. But it was during the qualifying period, and it was totally done on an outlap. Barry Burman, thank you, chat. It was Barry. Yes, Kryptonite, it was Barry Burman, and I believe as well it was Jake Benham, and they both came together. I think Benham actually had to serve a qualifying ban after that incident. And they ended up coming together, and it was carnage. So, unfortunately, Alvaro Carreton this time has been a victim of that particular onslaught. So there we go. That's unfortunate. But, hey, it does happen. We've seen it before. The good news is, though, Dan, we're going to be heading through to Q2, and looking forward to this. It's going to be good because we have got 15, I would arguably say, of some of the fastest talents that we're seeing in the current stage of league racing. Of course, we're seeing some new faces come in all the time. I think it's admirable where we're seeing the likes of Brendan Lee's pace at the moment. I mean, the strategy he pulled off in that sort of closing stage was brilliant because, of course, he allowed himself to be the fastest driver on track, and he was knocking the cars down like timber towards the very end. It was absolutely outrageous, wasn't it?
Yeah, and of course, the two-time champion has not lost a step. He was fantastic in the last race, of course, coming home in P2. So close to getting Danny Berejnay, but unfortunately his tyres did just not have any life left in them. But he still gained, I think it was 7 places in total in that Grand Prix, and those were just purely on-track overtakes. It was a brilliant showing from Brendan Lee. He found his way into Q2 with quite a convincing time as well, finishing near the upper echelons of this grid. Really looking forward to seeing both of these Alfa Romeo drivers. Of course, Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhaar, arguably, George, you've got to think of them as one of the one of the strongest pairings on this F1 Esports Caliber grid.
Yes, but from one Alpha to another, this time Alpha Tauri, Yoni Tormala has just gone fastest, as you'd expect, in the first sector, though he has just had it ripped away from him. 24.001, but Otis Lawrence has come out now and has done a 23.634. That is incredible. Nearly 3.5, well, just over 3.5 tenths faster already. And unfortunately, I believe Yoni has invalidated on the outset of Variante Alta. So that's disappointing. But Otis Lawrence purple in the first sector, 23.634. Wilson Hughes, his teammate, has just gone purple in the second sector, as you'd expect, but his very own teammate, Otis Lawrence, just stolen that privilege away from him as well. 25.636 here from Otis. Is this going to be Gotis for Otis? Let's wait and see. Makes his way through the final 2 corners, and then out of turn 15, he'll then shuffle his way down through towards the start-finish line. Wilson Hughes goes to the top, but immediately taken away by Otis Lawrence, who goes near enough 6.5 tenths of a second faster than his very own teammate. But again, another visit from Benjamin Oconi going second fastest, and not too far away, just over 3 tenths.
That is a diabolical lap from Otis Lawrence there. Insane pace that he's got. That's his outlap in Q2. Oh, his banker, sorry. And no one else has been able to match it at the minute. Thomas Ronhaar can't get close. What about Brendan Lee as he comes up to the line? It's for 13.7. It's getting closer to where Otis Lawrence has put his McLaren car, but just no one has gotten close enough. And as I say that, of course, Luke Smith, a fantastic effort from him there, a 13.586 from him, getting very close to Otis Lawrence, but not close enough.
No, not close enough at all. In fact, as well, Danny Berejnay coming into the pit straight away. Obviously not happy with his first run. He did set some reasonable first and second sectors, but obviously not happy with something. Frederick Rasmussen's not going to be happy either, because I think he's got a little bit of traffic just lodged in his way here. But in fact, I believe has backed out of his own lap as well after going a 23.941 in the first sector, which would have been ideal to at least register just to give him some delta to work with. But unfortunately having to deal, I think, with a few cars. And you can see the rear light flashing on the car, which means obviously he's not putting the battery to full use. Yano Otmir now making his way down towards the Variante Alta. He's got his own concerns with traffic out in front of him here, but Otmir looking to come back after a very busy race last time out. He also not utilising his battery either, but at the same time, especially after Portimao, he was right in the thick of it, and it was a battle between 2 former 2-time champions as well, Dan. He and Brendan Lee dueling it out at Portimao.
I mean, honestly, that race just felt like one big blur because of how intense it was throughout the entirety of it, George. It was a fantastic showing from every single driver. And I'll tell you what, I've kept going back almost every day this week to watch lap number 17 over and over again. Where
Stunning.
Honestly, George, I think that might be the best lap of league racing I have ever watched. I was like 5-6 cars fighting for one position throughout the entirety of one lap. Immense stuff. I wonder if we're going to see the same today. Oh,
it's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary. Ruben Pedreño now back out on track. He's the only car out on a flying lap at this stage. And we've got 3 other cars that are going to queue up and do exactly the same. Danny Berejnay as well exiting the pits and looking to head out on his outlap as well, as they now make their way up the hill towards the Piratella section, then down towards Acqua Minerale. Pedreño just ushering in a 24.024, which isn't necessarily representative in the first sector, and I think he knows it because he has backed out, in fact, of this particular run. So obviously no necessary big upheavals here at this mid-stage of Q2, but I think the second stage of Q2 is going to be a little bit busy, I think. But looking at this, certainly from what we're seeing in the timing screens right now, Otis on top, no doubt getting those fresher tyres on earlier than the other cars here, Dan.
Yeah, Absolutely, and this is when qualifying really does pick up and we see some blistering laps. Maybe some of them are going to get close to Otis Lawrence. He is also on a fresh set of boots. I believe that initial lap from Otis Lawrence was on a fresh set of tyres, but you know, it's still an immense lap nonetheless. And Luke Smith and Rune Pedreño, great stuff from the Alpine drivers, getting closer than anyone has to Otis Lawrence, but just not quite close enough. Most drivers, we've got almost all of them out on circuit at the minute, ready to get Q2 well and truly underway.
Yeah, and we've got one car that, well, we've now got two, in fact, with Jed Norgrove now passing the start-finish line. It is Istvan Pukki who makes his way down towards the Villeneuve chicane, and he'll hustle his way through as well in the initial setting at 23.669, which isn't too bad at all, in fact, only mere hundredths off Otis Lawrence up at the very top, so this is looking pretty good at the moment for Istvan Pukki. Freddie Rasmussen getting a 5-place grid penalty. Don't worry about that, folks. We will, of course, have a lobby restart post-qualifying. As now Pukki heads up through Acqua Minerale in the Scuderia Ferrari, the very familiar shades of red that we've come to expect. Heading through towards the Variante Alta. And still Pukki at the helm of this car now, looking to try and descend in towards the final two corners on this circuit. Coming out of turn 13 and then in towards 14 and 15. And he'll be the very first car to cross the line to commence this second stint of lap times. Pukki, incidentally, going purple in that second sector with a 25.229. This is going to be very competitive. Can he cross the line and usher it in? He can. Second fastest for Istvan Pukki. A stellar time to get this second half of Q2 underway. And he has certainly answered the critics, but nevertheless, given his recent performances, no questions about Istvan Pukki's pace.
Absolutely, and Danny Bergeret is on a lap at the minute, coming into the final few corners. He's appeared on my track map as going purple in both Sector 1 and 2. Whether that's correct, we'll have to wait and see, but he is on a flyer as the Hungarian, the winner from Portimao, comes across the line. What's it going to be? Will he challenge Otis Lawrence? Indeed, he will, going a full 600th of a second clear of Otis Lawrence there. Otis is on a lap at the minute, but unfortunately, George, he's invalidated and down on his time, so it seems like first blood goes to Danny Bergeret. Duncan Hoffland splits the pair of them, and Freddie Rasmussen's on the board. Yeah, Freddie Rasmussen is now second fastest. Red Bull occupying first and second. Thomas Ronhart purple in the first sector with a 23.549, 25.232 in sector 2 as he now crosses the line, goes fastest of anybody with a 13.306. That is stellar from Thomas Ronhart, back again, asking the big questions, and his teammate Brendan Lee has just stolen the purple second sector. Can Alfa Romeo answer back to the Red Bull 1-2 with a 1-2 of their own here in Q2 as well? Lee now up towards the line. He does go fastest with a 1:13.219 and 87 thousandths faster than his very own teammate Thomas Ronhart. What a statement that is from Brendan Lee there. He has not finished. The two-time F1 Esports champion. Sensational lap coming out from him there. Thomas Ronhart is also in P2, so a fantastic effort from both of the Alfa Romeos. Red Bull very close behind, but not close enough. Those two Alfa Romeos leading the way. Yeah, Alfa Romeo now at the head of the table as things stand, and it doesn't seem like anyone else is going to get close to them here at this point. We're coming down now into the final 4.5 minutes of this session. And desperate times call for desperate measures. Certainly if you are Joni Tormela, he came out for his second stint, but invalidated in the very first sector of setting his initial run, which could have happened around the Tamburello section. It could have happened at Villeneuve, but unfortunately for Tormela, he's going to have to come out and leave everything to the very last minute. And there's a few names that are filtering around the elimination spots that are a big concern. And my eyes are directly pointed at Mercedes right now here, Jake. Can they survive? I don't know, really. I mean, both the Mercedes drivers, they're not the best in qualifying. Both Jan Ortmeier and Jake Benham typically find themselves very close together in qualifying, but a lot of the times it's towards the bottom of the top 10. So we'll see if both Jan Ortmeier and Jake Benham are able to get themselves a little bit more comfortable in this part of qualifying, because the pair of them, well, Jake is well and truly in that bottom. He's in that drop zone. He's mired in 14th position. Jan Ortmeier just on the line of safety at the minute in 9th position. He's got a cushion of 1 driver behind him. That's Rune Pedreño until he is eliminated. But still, 3.5 minutes left to go in this session. And it should really kick off very, very soon as Jake Benham, the lone driver, out on circuit.
Yeah, he's on his own. The one big fear about this is, of course, he comes out and traffic might meet him. But with 3 minutes to go, this seems very early from Jake's. Now, whether he's carrying a little extra fuel and looking to do 2 hot flying laps is a possibility. Obviously, trying to subjugate the risk of obviously invalidating his run. That is a possibility here. It happens far often than you think. We've seen it already a few times. Many of them, in fact, coming through Variante Alta, where Jake's just come through. It has happened there. I think Yano Tomla has taken the same jump as well, because, of course, he's now made his way out onto the track with 2.5 minutes to go. He'll have enough time, I think, to just about squeeze potentially 2 laps in. It might be a bit of a risk, actually, but it is a possibility. In fact, no, I think it's going to be a little bit close to the wind here. So Jake Benham now round in the final corner. He will have traffic, I think, to face on this lap. My fears, I think, are pretty much confirmed here, Dan.
Yeah, Jake Benham has come out right into a big train of cars that are spanning their way through the 1st and 2nd sector now. Luckily, they're all doing their best to keep out of the way of the All-Star, who's really ramping on the curbs, trying to maximise his track usage as he flies his way in towards the Villeneuve chicane, but he's got McLaren just in front of him, and George, despite not giving that dirty air effect that some cars, if they're too close on your lap, just the visual distraction might be enough to put Jake Benham off. However, he's already up by 1/10 of a second, and what is that from the Alpine? Wow, right in front of Jake Benham.
Yeah, I think that's obviously going to frustrate him a little bit, especially when you're in the drop zone, and there are obviously going to be eliminations for the bottom 5 as per the usual system that we expect to see in Formula 1 in its modern era. Jake Benham now heading through towards Variante Alta. And, of course, now only 1 car currently operating on a flying lap right now, with other cars littered across this circuit. Luke Smith obviously retired at this point as well. Jake Benham needs to make the most. In fact, he's invalidated Jake Benham, so he has got no potential of registering a lap this time around. But doing that additional lap, does he have enough fuel? I think he's going to go again. He is at this stage. So he does cross the line, set to 1:13.858, but knows that will not register properly, because, of course, looking on my screen, he has gone red on my timing screen. So will he go again? No, he's not. He's out.
Jake Benham doesn't have enough battery to actually go at full speed, so Jake Benham will be eliminated from this session. George, also a nod to Luke Smith, and he's retiring in the pit lane in 7th position. Very, very bold when you consider that all of the top 6 are out on circuit at the minute, completing their final runs in Q2.
Yep, they're all looking to complete them now. I can tell you that Duncan Hoffland, currently operating in 5th, has just done a 23.667. It is not a personal best here at this point, but naturally, still out on track and has the option, or certainly the ability, no doubt, of extracting more out of Sector 2 and Sector 3. There are times coming in. No personal improvements for Wilson Hughes in the 1st sector. He's gone green at this stage, as has the AlphaTauri of Yano Tomla, who is yet to set a lap on the board here in Q2. This could be a massive lap here for Yano Tomla to escape out of Q2 and make his way into Q3. This is vital at this point. Can he do it? Cross the line? No! He's invalidated through the final sector again. Otis Lawrence has also managed to register a purple 2nd sector. Here at this point, it's kicking off here at the end of qualifying. Pedreño has gone purple as well, as we're seeing Duncan Hoffland finish his session. Lawrence goes 2nd fastest. Where's Pedreño? Pedreño coming through the final bend here. He's invalidated. He's just invalidated coming through the final corner. Even though he went purple in the 2nd sector, he's just had that privilege taken away by one Freddie Rasmussen. He's done a 25-1 in the 2nd sector. Needs a huge Sector 3 to topple Brendan Lee. If there's one man who can do it, it's the man who was runner-up in F1 Esports 4 years running. Freddie Rasmussen goes fastest here in Q2, a 1:13.178, and blitzes past 2-time champion Brendan Lee.
Wow. Incredible stuff from Freddie Rasmussen there. The first 1:13.1 we've seen today. Danny Bergevin at the final breath of it all nestles himself into P3, and it's a 1:34 Red Bull. Brilliant stuff from them there. I was watching Yano on his lap, George. I know a lot of fans will be very happy to know that the Flying Dutchman has found his way into Q3, but the same cannot be said about his teammate. We're also losing Istvan Pukki Wilson Hughes, Ruben Pedreño and Yoni Imola from this session, but still an immense lap there from Freddie Rasmussen.
Yeah, the story definitely seems to be centered around what's going on at Red Bull and Alfa Romeo. It's extraordinary. But Freddie Rasmussen now back on top and managing, should I say, get my words out. Come on, George. Managing to go first fastest. Brendan Lee second. Danny Berejnay in third. Red Bull occupying first and third with Otis Lawrence in fourth. Another good lap there from him to register that fourth place. Thomas Ronhaar, Duncan Hoffland, Ben Charbonnier, another impressive visit. Yano Watmere, Luke Smith, Jake Norgrove. We're going to lose this Van Pookie, Wilson Hughes, Ruben Pedreño, Jake Benham, and Yoni Imola. Some big names gone, and Mercedes once again down to one driver in Q3. Remember, he got eliminated in Q2 last time at Portimao. Remember starting where East Van Pookie was. They had a legendary fight out on track that consisted in both the first stint and the second stint of the race. And there's a possibility we could yet see that again because Ferrari have got no cars in Q3.
Yeah, it's Van Pookie, of course, being eliminated in Q2. Jack West going out in Q1. Not a good day for the last-minute call-ups, but hopefully in the race, of course, that is a much different story. It's a long race here as well at Imola, George. I believe it's 32 laps, if I'm not mistaken. It might be 33. It's one of those two, I know, but nevertheless, it's a lot of laps around here, so plenty of opportunities for these drivers to fight with one another. We'll see what happens come race time.
Yep, well, Q3 is now well and truly underway, folks, and we're looking forward to it, and we want you to get involved as well. Let's hammer up the live chat. Let us know. As you can see, all the names on the left-hand side. We're getting ready for Q3. This is the shootout for pole position. Let us know who your picks are for pole, and we'll read them out as well. Dan, I'm gonna ask you, get off your fence. Who's getting pole here at Imola here tonight?
I've always been a bit of an old head, so I want to go with either Danny Berejnay or Brendan Lee, and I'm going to have to pick one of them. I'm going to go red. I'm going to say Brendan Lee to take pole position tonight.
Goodness me, could he do just that? I tell you what, there's a big opportunity here for Brendan Lee. Imola, I think, suits Brendan Lee. Portimao suited Brendan Lee. There are some characteristics about Imola that kind of coincide a little bit with Portimao. You have got a little bit of a high-speed section, of course, the main straight, heading down through towards Tamburello, and you've got that elevation when you head up through towards the Piratella, and then the downward slope leading towards Acqua Minerale. So we've got plenty of opportunities here for various drivers here across the board. Let's read through some of these names as well. Lars VM saying Danny. We got Gallard saying Duncan for pole. We have got, Duncan Hoffman. What a performance that will be as well. We got a poll actually here in the chat, guys. You can get involved on that as well, so make sure you do vote for the driver you expect to see. If you have somebody else, type it in the chat. I want to hear from you, but great to see some of the other names getting mentions here at this point. But yes, you've got a choice here. Freddie Rasmussen, Yano Watmere, Danny Berejnay, Duncan Hoffland, Ben Charbonnier, Otis Lawrence, Brendan Lee, Luke Smith, Jed Norgrove and Thomas Ronhaar. Hat tip to Jed Norgrove here, Danfield. What a fabulous qualifying session this young man's had.
Jed Norgrove is a driver that I've not really been all that familiar with in my time as a commentator, and I think that's because when he's been in F1, I've been in F2, so it's really interesting to see how Jed Norgrove is really coping on this grid. And of course, we saw how well he performed in Bahrain, so he's very, of course, in the F1 esports scene, so he is a very deserving driver of where he is, and he's great in qualifying, I think, and whenever I commentate over him, he always finds a way into Q3, and it's no different story here today, George.
No, not at all. He's looking very well and truly dialed in here at this point. 23.7. He's just registered in the first sector. Otis Lawrence, though, purple at this stage. 23.541 in sector 1, so approximately 2/10 clear, nearly 2/10 clear. Otis Lawrence just ushered in a second purple sector running, so he's gone faster again than Jed Norgrove at this stage. Though I will say this, Thomas Ronhaar has just stolen the purple second sector. An invalidation for Brendan Lee here in the first run, so that's unfortunate. Jed Norgrove, though, making his way through the final corner. Otis Lawrence in the background, just getting real squirrely on exit. Jed Norgrove, though, going fastest in the initial. Otis tips him and goes immediately just over 4/10 quicker as well at this stage. Thomas Ronhaar, though, heading straight to the top with a blistering 1:13.185 and 500ths faster than Otis Lawrence here, Dan.
Great stuff there from Thomas Ronhaar. Always is in and around that conversation for pole position. There's so many drivers that could take it here this evening. Yano Otmir will be the last one to come across the line on his lap. We'll see what it is
wow.
for the Dutchman P2 from Yano Otmir. I was giving it the big one earlier, George, saying Yano's not all that quick in qualifying. He set a time good enough for a provisional front row. Maybe Yano Otmir is a name that we need to be thinking about in the fight for pole position. I really think that all 10 of these guys, George, wouldn't be surprised if any of them got pole.
No, not at all. We've literally, I mean, if we saw Q1, we saw how close it was all the way down to P9, all of them within 3/4 of a tenth, which is outrageous. Brendan Lee did go out for another run, but unfortunately, a 25.5 in the first sector is not ideal. I have no doubts in my mind that he is going to come in this time around. And it does mean that he's only got essentially one realistic chance of registering a fast lap here at this stage. You'll have to wait and see what Lee can come up with in dire straits. Of course, at this stage, just literally just trundling the car down the final sector at this point. But Thomas Ronhart, your fastest man, and you are right in saying that Yano Otmir, we alluded to him, obviously back at Portimao, doesn't necessarily qualify the best. Jed Norgrove.
Interesting.
What has he done? That is baffling. Jed Norgrove has retired here just after setting his very first lap. Is that an incident? Is that a crash?
I think he's done that coming into the pit lane. Has he not got any fresh tyres, maybe? And so he's decided not to come out for a lap. I'm very confused at what Jed Norgrove has done there. But one thing that we do know is that he will take no further part in this session. And George, a 1 minute 13.6 is not a good it's not a good time at all for Q3, unfortunately. I think Jed Norgrove, unless people invalidate behind him, that's P10 for him.
Well, I mean, I don't know what to tell you, folks, but I don't think we're going to see any improvements there. Duncan Hoffland out on track and has set a 23.7 in the first sector, so that is actually pretty competitive. That is on board, well, not far off where Otis's purple first sector was. In fact, just around 2/10 off that pace. But I tell you what, he might have a chance here at a potential good run should he manage to hustle in something decent in the second and third sectors. It's still slower, though, than a majority of the top 10 at this point, but the 25.1 in Sector 2 is a vast improvement, in fact, and very nearly in touching distance of Ronhar's purple second sector. So a bit of a cut and thrust time here for Duncan Hoffland, but at least just to get a time on the board, it does help as he now makes his way around the final corner, heading up towards the line now. What can Hoffland register on the Delta, as you can now see him go fifth fastest? Decent time there for Duncan Hoffland, and surpasses Jed Norgrove. And I think you're absolutely right here at this point, Dan. Jed Norgrove, I'd say, is a firm favourite to find himself in 10th place, I would say. Luke Smith has just made his way out onto his fast run as well, and he is yet to register a time onto the board. Brendan Lee out on an outlap. He's getting out early, no doubt, to look to try and register 2 additional final runs before the very end of qualifying. Going back to Yano Otmir's pace, yes, we did allude to it back at Portimao. Doesn't necessarily qualify well where it comes to racing, certainly in PSGL or of that in F1 Esports. But when it comes down to the race, you know what, like they say in the world of darts, points for show, doubles for dough. You know, it's the same for Yano Otmir, qualifying for show. It's the race result for dough, and that's exactly what Otmir has on his mind. Obviously, he likes to work a very strong strategy. He's a mastermind when it comes to strategical elements that he has brought to the table in F1 Esports in the past. He has brought them many a time to PSGL as well, so never write off the Flying Dutchman. Luke Smith now, heading through the final 2 corners. What can he register in this time around? 23.5 in the first sector, 25.3 in the second sector. Comes up towards the line 6th fastest, just behind Duncan Hoffland. Of course, at this very late stage, you want to find something a little extra because the track temperature does increase, and therefore the times do tend to get better and better as time goes on. Freddie Rasmussen, though, here, Dan, making his way through Tamburello.
Yeah, Freddie Rasmussen on this run. Of course, we saw him quickest in Q2. Not quite found that same pace in Q3. As Duncan Hoffland retires from the session, he's going to see no better than 13.4. As Freddie Rasmussen already on his run at the minute, up by a tenth, a hundredth of a second in Sector 1. Is not going to be enough to get himself ahead of Thomas Ronhart for the time being, as he dances his way through Piratella and now down towards Aqua Mineral. If he's found a decent amount of time in Sector 2, Freddie Rasmussen could find himself back in the conversation for pole position. He comes up to the Sector 2 split now, up by 0.04 of a second, almost half a tenth. But it's not looking all that strong for Freddie Rasmussen as he approaches with back to 1 and 2.
Yeah, I just want to point out as well, the reason why every driver has come out early is because the rain is due in around 4 minutes' time. Could come out earlier, so a lot of them trying to take assurances here at this stage. Freddie Rasmussen, though, has gone purple in Sector 2, so a great chance to snatch pole. He does snatch pole! A 1:13.114, enough to topple Thomas Ronhaar, but Ronhaar has gone purple in the second sector himself, so a great chance here for the Dutchman to take on the Great Dane as we now make our way through the final echelons here in Q3. Can Ronhaar answer back against that of Freddie Rasmussen at the very end of qualifying? Can he do it? Yes, he can! Goes fastest than Freddie Rasmussen, a 1:13.078. Enough for Thomas Ronhaar to surpass the 4-time F1 Esports runner-up. Ronhaar on top.
And the rain's hit now. Yano Otmir off the exit of the final corner. We'll see if this has hampered his lap at all. He comes across the line, finds an improvement, but it's not enough to get ahead of Frederick Rasmussen. Now, George, with the rain falling, it looks like we're not going to be able to see any more fast times on the board. So this might be what we are seeing in qualifying. Thomas Ronhaar on pole position, Freddie Rasmussen second, but the big name that leaps out to me, Danny Berejnay, all the way down in 10th. He's not been able to put a time on the board now coming in towards Sector 3. He's finding time, but he's going to be struggling.
Yeah, he is going to be struggling, and the reason why he's finding time is because his previous lap was a 1:58, so not necessarily representative. Ben-Chab Okoye comes up towards the line as well, 25.2 in the second sector, but still not enough to find. He's lost a lot of delta, and Danny Berejnay, as the droplets continue to fall here at Imola. What's it going to be here for Danny Berejnay? Across the line, a 1:13.862, better than his previous lap, but not enough to certainly threaten the rest. And Brendan Lee, his time as well, way off where it needs to be. It's Ronhaar back to the top, a position he is oh so used to. Without a doubt, I am sure he will remain on pole with no improvements in sight. Thomas Ronhaar is on pole here in PSGL, here at Imola.
Beautiful stuff there from Thomas Ronhaar to get himself onto pole position ahead of Frederick Rasmussen. It was still a very close end to qualifying, just 36 thousandths of a second separating the Alfa Romeo and the Red Bull. Yano Otmir was a further 300ths off the back of Freddie Rasmussen, so a sensational run from Yano Otmir, especially, George, when you consider how typically he doesn't have the best qualifying pace. Yano's got to be very happy about that lap. Otis Lawrence fourth, and Brendan Lee rounding out that top 5. Danny Berejnay, though, is going to be bitterly disappointed with the rain hitting when it did and him not being able to get a time on the board. And George, the thing is, Danny was on a run before the rain hit, about 5 minutes towards the end of the session, and he was purple in Sector 2, but invalidated in Sector 3 and ruined his chances of getting pole.
Yeah, that's the only way to stop Danny Berejnay is a rain cloud, and that's indeed what stopped him. And but it was Thomas Ronhaar on the day. He came in where he needed it most, and it now answers the main question. It might have answered, in fact, that the reason why Jed Norgrove retired when he did. He obviously might have thought that the rain might have hit a little sooner, but Thomas Ronhaar is on pole, his first pole of the season, with Frederick Rasmussen, who's joining him on the front row of the grid as well. The history that these two have, all the way back to F1 Esports last season, where they came together at the Mexican circuit. Yano Otmir in third, Otis Lawrence in fourth, Brendan Lee in fifth, Duncan Hofland in sixth, Luke Smith in seventh, with Jet Norgrove in eighth. And the two Hungarians, Ben-Chab Okoye for Haas and Danny Berejnay in 10th place for the Red Bull team. Remember last week's race winner. But yes, folks, that is qualifying. That has been concluded. We're going to take a very quick commercial break. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Well, welcome back, folks, and after that little break, we can digest just a little bit as to what happened in Q3. Of course, if those of you voted for Thomas Ronhard to be your pole sitter, you'd be absolutely spot on. And didn't he do it well? Of course, the consistency, the raw talent and consistency we're so used to seeing that brought him a race win in Event 1 at Bahrain in F1 Esports has come back to roost again, this time here at PSGL. And he is now once again on top and will commence the race at Imola on the front row of the grid and at the very highest spot on the grid as well. As to who took pole position, we have got the voting results here. In fact, Ronhard wasn't even on the list of options, but we'll take you through this. Danny Berejnay was actually the most popular candidate, obviously fresh off the back of his sensational win at Portimao. He wasn't pole at Portimao, though. It was Otis Lawrence, and he only got 21% of the vote. Freddie Rasmussen, though, who is going to start on the front row, 28% of the vote. Brendan Lee, 16%. But the citing around how there's a lot of people voting for your Brendan Lees and your Thomas Ronhards as well, Dan. I think that's renewed confidence, is it not, in the entirety of what Alfa Romeo are trying to do here? Because, you know, whilst on one level you've got someone like Ronhard and you've got someone like Brendan Lee, who is a proven two-time champion, who seemingly looks like he's back to his best, I think that speaks volumes about the progression that once again Sauber Esports have taken on board.
Of course, Sauber Esports, they hosted that duo of Danny Berejnay and Yano Otmir. Now what Mercedes has, and of course Yano won a title in that Alpha alongside Danny Berejnay. So Sauber Esports definitely could be in the in the sort of the GOAT debate when it comes to F1 esports team, just due to the fact that they've been able to nurture talent and bring in so many brilliant drivers. Of course, I believe Nicolas Longuet was racing there at one point. That might be wrong. I don't know why I'm thinking that, but I'm not too sure, if I'm being completely honest. But my point is, George, Alfa Romeo and Sauber Esports have been fantastic in their tenure in F1 Esports, and I think this goes to show that you know, losing Yano Otmir and Danny Berejnay, that dynamic duo that they forged, it hasn't been the end of the world for them. Brendan Lee and Thomas Ronhard could be the new beginning for them.
They could well be. I mean, Alfa Romeo have probably one of the best records in F1 Esports for producing great young talent, and you know what, going back to an old face, an old head with someone like Brendan Lee, but then to have a new rookie to come up and stand up. I mean, we look at Brendan Lee historically, his league racing form in AOR. He was a former AOR champion years ago. Of course, you could go back and watch the old streams of when Brendan Lee was dominant on both Xbox and PC, eventually moving into F1 Esports when it first started in 2017, dominating that, becoming its first champion, made history by becoming its first ever champion, and then eventually moving on in 2018 to Mercedes, where he would sign a proper manufacturer deal and then would win the title for them as well. And it just goes to show how raw that talent truly does burn, and it takes the right team to unearth that again. And I think with Sauber Esports looking after his affairs, I think they've got the right people around him. And let's speak about the engineering teams as well at Alfa Romeo, because they have got some great people working at that organisation. You know, you've got the likes of Seb Kowalski, who is one of the best and brightest engineers in F1 Esports in this modern day, a former commentator as well here at PSGL, no less as well, and is now recently become a top engineer at Alfa Romeo. So, you know, it just goes to show, if you have the whole the whole collective when it comes to talent, where it be talent on track or talent behind the scenes, it makes a huge difference to your team. It made a huge difference to McLaren, Dan, because many of those faces were, you know, the reason behind Lucas Blakely capturing the crown, and also them winning the team's title, which of course now many of them have moved to Ferrari, where Barry Burremand is now.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that Jono Martins was a part of that McLaren team when they won the title, and Antoine Desilescu, who I believe is still there. And it's great that these are league racers themselves. Yep. Jono Martins and Antoine Desilescu, I remember both of them being season 29 in F2 when, of course, we moved on from just having the PC F1 to then expanding to F2, F3, F4, etc. And the pair of them were racing on that grid. And I think that understanding of how the game works, not just knowledge of how, you know, how to set up the cars, but how these codemasters at EA F1 esports builds work, it is fantastic to see that these teams have not just focused solely on the drivers, but they've recruited the most knowledgeable people possible to really elevate themselves. That's what I think McLaren and Alfa Romeo doing fantastically well.
Yeah, they've made sheer statements, and I think with the fact that Alfa have built their base as well, obviously now organised by the R8G outfit, who of course have had vast success in ESL R1 with Marcel Chinchik becoming a spring season champion in ESL R1 in the GT3s. Of course, then they have taken on, teams championships as well as part of their organisation, and now look after the affairs of not only Alfa Romeo but of course Haas as well, as they have done in recent years, signing the likes of Alfie Butcher and many others too. And I'm sure we'll see many more great talents come through to the forefront. Of course, Timbo as well has become an F1 esports manager and engineer with that team as well. So plenty of new talents that have become part of the R8G fold, and it's now filtered downwards into supporting these teams. And sit tight, folks, we do have a race to bring you, so do not go away. It'll be happening very soon. We had to do a lobby restart because of course we had the starting grid glitch unfortunately hit us during qualifying, but yes, we have got so much to look forward to. Big question marks as well about how it'd be interesting to see how Aston Martin fared tonight, Dan, because obviously change of faces altogether. Of course, we had Donoso and Weigang last time out. We've got Nordyke, and we've also got his teammate Duncan Hoffland this time around. Two drivers that are impressive. Arguably, we didn't see the best from Joost Nordyke in qualifying because he had the potential to usher in that brilliant lap that would have saved his bacon in qualifying, but obviously that key invalidation upsetting his chances, and Hoffland was impressive to get into Q3.
Duncan Hoffland is a name that I think for a while has been very, very underrated in the league racing and F1 esports scene. But now, as he's been making more and more Q3 appearances in both PSGL and WOR, he's really getting the recognition that he deserves. And I think Duncan Hoffland is on the precipice of becoming a potential big star in the future of the F1 esports scene. So you got to watch out for Duncan Hoffland, and you're definitely right as well that Joost Nordyke had the potential to get himself into the next session. His time would have been good enough for around about 5th or 6th position, so Joost Nordyke definitely has the pace around this circuit. It's whether or not he can replicate that in the race and potentially find his way into the top 10. Yeah,
every chance he can as well. And if we look at the history of Duncan Hoffland, he and Wilson Hughes have a vibrant history, a vibrant past when they both contested for PSGL titles on the PlayStation platform in the past. But lo and behold, Danfield, we have got rain here at Imola, and I tell you what, never a thriving combination. Let us know in the live chat first of all who you think is going to win the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, the mystery GP as well here at PSGL. Dan, let us know. What are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking back to I think 2021 Imola, where turn number 1, Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton, if I'm not mistaken, it was that year. They had their collision in the wet, and I'm wondering if history is going to repeat itself like a ripple, but honestly, I don't know how this race is going to pan out. I'm so looking forward to it. Imola, fantastic circuit with a whole lot of history, and being in the rain, that's just another twist to the tail.
Yeah, well, we're getting lots of people saying Yano Otmir, he's the best in the rain, and I've got to say, I've got to agree with a lot of you in the live chat. He has proven to be an absolute animal when it comes to racing in the rain. I'm looking at comments from Noah Smith, Tom Buckley, as well as the Labyrinth. We've got Tazit as well. Parsifal is here also commenting in the chat. Jimmy saying Yano will cook in the rain. Otmir, goat of rain as well. Thank you, Mello, for that. We've got Duncan as well. Joel Brown, thank you so much, my friend. I do try and look stylish for you guys at home every Wednesday night. It's my social life, isn't it? Hanging out with you lot at home. Danny Field, the original ladies' man, says AFC Racer. Fabulous. Brilliant. And we're both making statements here, Dan. It's great. The rain continuing to fall here, but certainly not dampening our spirits here as we look to go into Imola. Say hello to Brazil. Big hello to Brazil. Great to have you guys here tuning in. Yano will cook, but now we're going to head to the racetrack. I'm sure we're going to see action that will surely cook here in Imola as we put pedal to the metal. And it is go, 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 go. Thomas Ronhar gets away very well. Freddie Rasmussen, I think, got a little bit caught there on the escape heading off the line. Yano Otmir right to his wheel tracks as they headed towards Tabarello. Otmir on the outside of the former 4-time back-to-back back. F1 Esports runner-up Otis Lawrence as well entering the fold. Rasmussen does enough to prevent Otmir from making the key overtake into second place. But as they rush through now, Villeneuve heading up through towards the Tosa section, it is Thomas Ronha who leads here at Imola.
Brendan Lee had an off down at turn number 1. Now he's losing a number of places at the minute, already dropping down into 8th position. So it's been a great start for one of the Alfa Romeos, but a very torrid one for Brendan Lee. He's coming under pressure from Ben Conyi at the minute, as though there's a lot of battling further back behind.
Yeah, just a reminder of the tyre sets. Every driver occupying the intermediates here at this very tender opening stage. But still at the front of the order, no change. Thomas Ronha is occupying top spot. Will Lewis is currently battling, in fact, as well, and breezes past Alfie Butcher. So a great start here for Will Lewis. And a start as well that Williams would have needed. In fact, credit to Will Lewis. Started 17th, he's now up to 14th. But I think the biggest alarm bell ringing right now is Butcher, as we now see some more wheel-to-wheel action here with Jake Benham, who leaves it a bit late, heading through the final 2 corners. Very nearly catches Wilson Hughes as well on the escape of heading through the final corner. As we now begin the next lap, it's Ronha out in front. But look at this. Here comes Freddie Rasmussen now, looking for the lead of the race. Can he take it away from Ronha? He does here on lap 2.
George, that's the first of many moves that we are going to see in towards Tamburello. Freddie Rasmussen taking the lead of this Grand Prix ahead of Thomas Ronha. Yano Otmir sitting pretty in the wings. We've seen Rune Pedreño come into the pit lane. Joost Noordijk also had an off. Still lots and lots of battling further back down the order. I see Jake Benham. He's lost touch with the top 11. Now he's got Wilson Hughes and Will Lewis, 2 PlayStation GOAT on the PC, challenging the former Xbox driver. Yep,
certainly will. Heading out now of the Tosa section and the wheel spinning on exit. I think Jake Benham is having a few issues out here on track at this stage. He is bottlenecked the entirety near enough of the bottom 10. Of course, it's all the way from P12 downwards to P20. Well, say down to P20. Many of them have now gone into the pits. So Wilson Hughes has got a little bit of work to do to try and muscle past here. But Jake Benham starting to try and recover. The gap is in fact lengthened. I do wonder whether Hughes might have sustained some pretty severe wing damage after just nudging into the back of Benham's car. Now, whether that has caused any damage, I'm not quite sure, but just to allude obviously to the penalty points factor as well, folks, Alfie Butcher, the only driver to sustain penalty points. He has got 3 accrued already, but warnings are being littered right through this grid. Of course, already picking up 3 warnings for Alfie Butcher as now Freddie Rasmussen takes the fastest lap of the race.
Well, George, this is a very difficult circuit when it comes to track limits, and it's amplified in the rain as Thomas Ronha's back into the lead. Freddie Rasmussen holding him, though, on the inside, and these two are going to run wheel-to-wheel throughout this first sector. Freddie Rasmussen, Thomas Ronha still fighting side by side. In comes Yano Otmir, looking to make the challenge for P2 ahead of Freddie Rasmussen, and that was ever opportunistic from the Flying Dutchman. So incredibly talented in the rain, and he's found the opportunity on Freddie. Make that 2 on Thomas Ronha as he goes up the inside through turn number 7 of Tosa. Can Yano Otmir find it through the second sector?
Burning and bursting out of Tosa, heading through towards Aqua Minerale. Surely not Otmir! Surely not! He can't! Ronha, though, trying to keep him at bay here, but they're wheel-to-wheel again as they look to power their way through towards this section. As we now see them all bunch up, he managed to get past Rasmussen, heading out of Tamburello, but just about as they made their way out of the Piratella in towards Aqua Minerale, just lost out. They come through the Variante Alta. Otmir, though, on the attack.
Yano Otmir looking to make a splash in the rain here at Imola. Already getting so feisty on the rear of Thomas Ronha. Wanted to go for the move in towards Tosa corner. Wasn't quite able to make it work, but potentially in towards turn number 1 at Tamburello. We could see an opportunity for Otmir to go on the attack.
Yeah, we might well do. He has got Freddie Rasmussen right behind him as well. Brendan Lee on the attack as well. Very nearly managed to unsettle Luke Smith heading through the latter stages of lap 3. It's now on lap 4 now. We see also some movements further back. Otis Lawrence just trying to get himself into the clean air as they make their way through Tamburello. Again, Brendan Lee on the attack again this time. Jed Norgrove has been a thorn in his side, though, as they look now to hustle their way down towards Villeneuve. Conyi in the mix in all this as well. Norgrove trying to defend, does so brilliantly as Conyi has to subjugate himself out of the way of danger, but they come together again as they head up through towards the Piratella, and slight contact made as their Western Berejne also fight heading out of Tosa.
Danny Berejny struggling to make the moves early in this race, and in fact he's lost the position now to Jack West, and he finds himself he's outside of the points paying position. It'd be a disastrous way to continue that momentum that he's carrying forward from Portimao, and I wonder if he loses out in this race, is that going to be confidence killed for Danny coming into the rest of the season?
Well, I'll tell you what, let's wait and see. I mean, Berejny now occupying P11, coming unstuck at a very key point here on the track. Jack West, though, has proven that he is a cut amongst the best of them. So, you know, on the odd occasion, he is, of course, someone who has been successful in F2 competition, and no doubt he can find his feet a little bit more. Berejny, remember, round one winner back at Portimao, and looking to come back again this time at Imola to try and rein in his best. Here comes Ronhaar, though, once again on the tail of the Flying Dutchman. Yano Otmir, who, of course, leads this race so far. Out in front, can he keep his fellow Dutch championship contender at bay as they now make their way through towards Tamburello. Otmir still leading at this point, with Ronhaar in behind.
Feisty move from Yano Otmir up the inside of Ravazza 1, and he made that move stick on Thomas Ronhaar, who was put out to pasture in the curbing. Tried to possibly go for the move back in towards turn number 1, but Yano Otmir very stern with the precipice that he wants to lead this Grand Prix. He's been on the attack for now 5 laps at this point, and he's finally found his way to the front.
Yeah, he has. Out in front now is Otmir, as we now see them make their way through the Piratella section. Still Otmir in front. He'll remain there now, I'm sure, for a little bit of time. Obviously, the weather at this stage, we are expecting it to stay with us right through this session. Ronhaar right behind them here with Rasmussen in 3rd place. Otis Lawrence in 4th as well. They're all in tandem nose to tail. Duncan Hoffland has also had a very impressive start. Maintained his pace level. Started P6, up 1 place. Brendan Lee trying to fight back to get into the Delta as well. Luke Smith now around a second in front of him here, but is now starting to flirt with that second gap. No DRS at stake though, so it doesn't necessarily matter at this stage, but obviously some aero does help. In order to try and gain pace and try and land some sort of blow or an attack on your cars around you. Ronhaar now makes his way across the line. The gap between he and Otmir now stretching to nearly half a second, with Rasmussen now in 3rd, as they now curtail here on lap 6 of 32. Otmir out in front. This is ideal for Yano at this stage, of course. Does like the wet weather, and of course, we spoke about his performances in race trim. This is a perfect Yano Otmir scenario.
Yano Otmir really is looking to come back into PSGL with a bang. Of course, the defending champion here in PSGL, ahead of one of the contenders that we could potentially see fighting for that title this season. It is, of course, Bahrain Esports winner Thomas Ronhaar on the back of his fellow countryman Yano Otmir. It seems like it's all Dutch today. The top 5, 3 of them are from the Netherlands. Of course, Freddie Rasmussen from Denmark, and then Otis Lawrence, of course, being from Wales. George, I'm sure you're very happy about that. All the English drivers letting me down at the minute, aside from Luke Smith at the minute. Will Lewis, Alfie Butcher in the teens at the moment. They need to step it up here, George.
Yeah, they certainly do. And Otis, I've got to give him credit here. 4th place again, proving that consistency still, as they now make their way down through towards the final sector. Otmir now in front, 6/10 now the gap. And I think he's definitely bleeding that battery just a little bit. Otmir using his, I think, distinctly more than what Ronhaar is. Of course, we saw his levels as we looked at the onboard just now, and it was verging on 3/4 full at this point. So I don't think Ronhaar is as concerned about battery usage here at this stage. I think Ronhaar finding enough in the corners, aside from where Otmir is, as they now hustle their way down the straight. And as they make their way around through towards Tamburello, the gap now reduced once again. 3.5 tenths between the top 2 as they now hustle down through towards the left and right, heading out to Villeneuve and up through towards the left-hander at Tosa once again at turn 7. Piratella will come up after this, and look at this from Ronhaar, once again pushing Yano around the left-hander before they then take the elevation uphill. And Otmir now, I think, has got to manage his battery because Ronhaar has got plenty of it.
Yeah, Otmir is using quite a lot of his. He's on 55% at the moment, which doesn't seem too bad, but when you consider the fact that Thomas Ronhaar's got 92% in the back of that Alfa Romeo, it really does go to show the just raw talent that Thomas Ronhaar has, that Yano Otmir is doing all he can to try and push away from the rest of the pack. But Thomas Ronhaar is doing a fantastic job of keeping in tow with his fellow countrymen. Now he's got a full battery at the minute, starting to utilise it, heading down in towards Ravazza 1 and 2. I wouldn't be surprised, George, if we see Thomas Ronhaar go for a move in towards turn number 1. He's 0.3 of a second back off of his fellow countryman, back off of the Mercedes, but Yano Otmir off like a shot down the main straight, utilising his own ERS, heading down in towards turn number 1. Thomas Ronhar's getting close. Seems like, though, he doesn't want to go for the move here.
No, I think he's going to be a little bit patient, and I think that shows in his use of the battery as well. Jack West, though, is certainly not being patient. He's going to challenge wheel to wheel against Ben Chavo. Cogni in towards Tamburello. Jack West opening up the Ferrari, opening up the door. 9th place now, out on track. Fabulous run indeed from Jack West, and is now going to try and gain on Jed Norgrove, but there's quite a gap to find. A second, in fact.
Yeah, and of course Brendan Lee has made up that gap to Luke Smith that was formerly 1.1 seconds, so Jack West is definitely going to be able to at least try and claw some of that back if he uses maybe some of his battery to get onto the rear of the Alpha Tauri, but he is within 1 second. Of course, doesn't really matter with there being no DRS in these wet weather conditions, but still you want to have that slipstream so you can try and defend from all of the drivers in behind. As we continue along on lap number 8, George, I gotta say, Yano Otmir, he's doing all he can to try and pull away from the pack. He's still using his battery, but Thomas Ronhar and Freddie Rasmussen, to be fair to them both, are keeping well within reach of Yano.
Yeah, at this stage, Yano still maintaining P1, but for how long can it last? Because Ronhar is right on his tail. Rasmussen as well has not really moved a muscle, and neither has Otis Lawrence. They're quite content with just queuing up in behind. Remember, we generally see the fireworks kick off towards the latter stages of the race. And with obviously the wet weather becoming a factor here, it does obviously subjugate the requirement for a stop. Now we have a battle for the lead once again. It's the two Dutchmen collide. And now, after missing the first overtake we saw between Otmir and Ronhar, we now get to see another one. This time Ronhar takes the lead ahead of Yano Otmir and will now, on lap 9, look to try and push onwards. Otmir, of course, still on his tail. This is far from over here in this early stage.
And if I'm Yano Otmir, I'm not going to be feeling too sad about that, because following in behind another car, it saves your tyres, and it also allows for you to save a bit more ERS whilst following in the slipstream of another car. Essentially, Thomas is punching a hole in the air for Yano Otmir to follow through. So we'll see whether or not the Flying Dutchman is happy to sit behind his fellow countryman for the next few laps or so before the pit stop phase decides to come around. George, I'm not too sure what it is in the wet side. I'd imagine it's around about the end of the teens, maybe lap 18, 19 or something. I'm not too sure in terms of the tyre life in these intermediate conditions, but we'll have to wait and see. Lap number 9, definitely very early, start thinking about a pit stop. So I'd imagine we're going to see a little bit of a lull for the next few laps or so.
And we'll see which drivers are better when it comes to tyre saving as well. This is where Otmir thrives. Of course, remember, we look back at some of the best races he has had, the mixed conditions that we have seen. For example, at Kota, historically, where he has taken league races by the horns and has really managed to cultivate some truly bizarre, outstanding, thrilling performances. And now, once again, on the precipice of perhaps even achieving yet another incredible feat here. Can he do this? Of course, we're only 10 laps into this race. We've got plenty more to go, 32 in total, as the rain continues to pour down here in the heart of Emilia-Romagna, here at Imola, where we now see the cars. They make their way through Villeneuve. We take a very picturesque look at the cars as they make their way up through towards the left-hander, heading through towards Tosa, and then the Piratella coming up after this one. It's still Ronhar out in front. The gap now still very much staying exactly the same as it was when Otmir was leading earlier on, and it was Ronhar giving chase. They're just swapping roles here at this stage, and this gives Otmir a chance as well to save that ERS as well, Dan.
Absolutely, Yano Otmir is doing a good job of charging up that battery. Now he's got 73% in the back of that Mercedes at the minute, so that's 3/4 full for Yano Otmir. So he's doing a good job just sitting in behind Thomas Ronhar, not trying to attack all too much, because then that'll deplete the pair of their batteries, and that'll allow for Freddie Rasmussen and Otis Lawrence to phase in very nicely into this Grand Prix. It's been a very slow part of this race for the time being. Not really all that much is happening. I'm having a look at the positions gained. Jack West is on a tear at the minute. He has gained 7 spots in this Grand Prix. Still though not quite within that 1 second winner that he wants to be in terms of his closeness to Jed Norgrove. But Jack West doing a sublime job here.
Yeah, Freddie Rasmussen right on the tail of Yano Otmir as well. Got a blinding run heading down towards Tamburello. He has gapped Otis Lawrence to nearly a whole second here at this point, as they now make their way out of Tamburello in towards the Villeneuve chicane. And it is still Thomas Ronhar out in front, Otmir in second, Rasmussen in third. Of course, then Otis Lawrence has a little bit of a gap to the man in P3. Of course, Rasmussen occupying that third place. Looks a little more aggressive this lap here in lap 11, with Lawrence now very nearly 7.5 to 8 tenths of a second now away from Rasmussen in fourth, with Duncan Hoffland all over his tail. Jed Norgrove unable to close the gap between he and Brendan Lee, and that's a fight that we saw earlier on when they came together heading out of 8th place into 7th place. Brendan Lee occupying that 7th spot, and Norgrove now in 8th, but having a really good race as well, and especially after ushering in a decent quali, has actually managed to rein in Brendan Lee, who's lost quite a distinct amount of time. Has Lee made a mistake there, Dan?
I wonder what's happened to Brendan Lee. He just doesn't seem all that confident in these wet weather conditions, and now he's got Jed Norgrove all over the back of them. These two kind of just in their own little pair at the moment, because Jack West hasn't really been able to catch up to the back of the AlphaTauri, and then Luke Smith is pulling away from Brendan Lee. So the pair of these guys, they're both sort of just chilling where they are at the moment. Brendan Lee is also quite low on battery. Jed Norgrove has got a considerable amount more in comparison to the Alfa Romeo, and might be on the back of Brendan Lee very, very soon.
Yeah, we've got more cars coming into the pits. Alvaro Caraton coming in, as is Benjamin Oconier. Only one retirement so far. Alfie Butcher still the only... Well, I said he was the only driver with a penalty. We have had a few others creep in as well. Jake Benham has got a penalty. 3 seconds ushered to his time. Ruben Pedreño also picked one up prior to the DNF, as we now see the cars exit out of the Tosa section. Purple sectors here being ushered in as well, as I say it, from Alfie Butcher at this point, as we now see the cars make their way around. He is ushered in already at 29.7 on that previous best lap, at 28.094 as well. So, you know, a great run here from Alfie Butcher does make all the difference. Benjamin Oconier is going to be looking to usher in some big laps now on his fresh intermediate tyres. Now, I wonder whether that does, force a few drivers' hands in a way, because you have got a plethora of cars in that bottom 10 that include the likes of your Danny Berejnes, your Jake Benhams, your Wilson Hugheses, your Will Lewises, all of those drivers, East Van Pookie as well, that could do with perhaps a very juicy undercut here to try and influence something in the top 10, because like I said, despite obviously them being that far down, in truth, they're all pretty much tightly gathered together in terms of the deltas, and certainly if you're outside the 1 second gap, it could make all the difference. And as I say that, Jed Norgrove comes into the pits.
Yeah, Jed Norgrove into the pits, so it seems like a lot of early stops coming out now. We've had Ben Oconier, Joni Tormala, Alfie Butcher, Alvaro Caraton, and Joost Noordijk. Now Jed Norgrove as well. So essentially the bottom 6 in this race, they've all decided to come in for a fresh set of the intermediates, and that just feels very early to me. Lap 13 of 32, that might mean we might see a two-stopper from some of these guys. Joni Tormala, he's loving life at the minute though. He's quickest on circuit now with a 1:24.813. So yeah, it seems like these fresh inters are working for these guys, but it's just very interesting to see them pit this early.
Yeah, no, it is interesting. Very, very big calls. I mean, we have seen at the very start, we saw earlier on Yano Otmir's tyre comparison with Freddie Rasmussen. They were both around the 20% mark. That was, you know, quite not too long ago, but already we've seen many of them jumped up to 40% in places. So the degradation is pretty harsh here around Imola. But that is, of course, when you spin the tyres around this track, those slow speed corners, then all of a sudden you pounce back onto the throttle. It does make a difference, as now Otmir is pretty much pushing Thomas Ronhaar around the final 2 corners here on lap 13 of 32. Will this allow the Flying Dutchman to open up the door here as they make their way down now, this time on lap 14 towards Tamburello? The Mercedes hot on the heels here of Ronhaar in first place. Will Yano pounce? Will he go for a move? More cars coming into the box as well. Yano threatening down the inside, opting not to make that overtake to grant him P1 just yet, but Brendan Lee has come in, so's Luke Smith, Jake Benham and Jack West. So Undercut is on here in this race here, Dan.
Yeah, lots and lots of pit stops. I noticed you were going to call me Jack there, I believe.
It was close.
George,
it was close.
Very close, but you got it.
I saved myself just like the professional I am, so there we go.
Absolutely, but you're seeing the power now of the undercut, because Ben Oconier, Jed Norgrove, they've been able to jump ahead of both Luke Smith and Brendan Lee, and in fact, Joni Tormala with a 3-lap undercut has been able to get himself ahead of Brendan Lee, so it shows that the undercut is a very powerful tool for these drivers to use, and we could see the likes of Ben Oconier and Jed Norgrove potentially well within that top 5 once all of them decide to come into the pit lane. We're near approaching, George, the halfway mark of this race. So definitely some drivers are going to start to think about pit stops very, very soon. But it seems like the drivers at the top, the general consensus between all of the top 5 drivers, just stay out for as long as you can, maximize this tire life. I wonder this time by, are we going to see any of the leaders come in? We saw Thomas Ronhaar last time by, faked it. He's going to commit this time, pulling into the pits, as does Freddie Rasmussen. Yano Otmir will lead this race then.
Some major calls already. Yano staying out, but 4 cars have come in early. It's Ronhaar, Rasmussen, Lawrence, as well as Duncan Hoffland. They've opted to pit. Berejnay now moves up to second. So, I mean, you could argue that that's a Mercedes grand plan if you consider that. Otmir now out in front with Berejnay now moving up into second place. So it's in Berejnay's interest to go a little bit longer here. He can try and do the opposite of what all the others are doing and then maybe have better tyres towards the end of the race. No doubt Otmir's trying that same strategy as well. So Ronhaar and Rasmussen boxing together with Lawrence as well, Duncan Hoffland. Now in all that, you look at Benjamin Oconye, who boxed earlier as well, Jed Norgrove, they've actually jumped Otis and Duncan. So boxing earlier has helped numerous amounts of drivers here. So well strategized here from the likes of Benjamin Oconye. Well done, Jed Norgrove. They have gained places as now Brendan Lee is fighting here with Yoni Tormala and Duncan Hoffland.
Wow, it's fantastic stuff heading down in towards Tosa Corner. It seems like Brendan Lee's come out on top this time by Yoni Tormala, followed the 2-time esports champion through, and Duncan Hoffland, he has had a nightmare start to this second stint because now he has lost 5 places total to what he would have been in this fight. So he's well out of the fight for a win at this point. He has got a lot fresher tyres, especially to Yoni Tormala. So in the next few laps, we'll see Duncan Hoffland phase into this second stint and try go back on the attack of the drivers that were able to undercut him. But a very, very disappointing start to the second stint for him.
Yeah, absolutely right. Brendan Lee now right in behind Otis Lawrence here. Of course, he boxed early as well. 1 lap previous to what Otis Lawrence did, but has managed to actually gain a little bit of delta. This might actually help out Brendan Lee in the long run. Of course, Yano Otmir still not coming in. He's going longer again, as is Danny Berejnay, who remains out as well. Plenty of other cars that are opting for a longer stint as well. Will Lewis being one of them, who makes his way down towards Villeneuve. It's getting very nip and tuck between a lot of them here. Jed Norgrove trying things on the outside here of Benjamin Oconye as they make their way around this time, but he's opened the door here for Luke Smith, who pounces straight away. Otis Lawrence now also looking to try and make his way through, trying to force a manoeuvre here. Otis Lawrence unable to do so, but Luke Smith pouncing on the opportunity and soaks up that 9th place.
And Otis Lawrence was going to have an opportunity for the attack, but he got caught on the curb of the second part of the Villeneuve chicane, and unfortunately that killed his momentum heading through towards Tosa, and now he is going to remain in P11. So seems like these intermediate tyres, George, they take a few laps to really phase in because Luke Smith, Jed Norgrove, despite having older tyres than Otis Lawrence, the same goes for Brendan Lee and Yoni Tormala. It seems like a few laps in, that's when they actually hit their stride. It's not when you initially put them on. So we'll have to wait and see how this affects the rest of the race. But one thing I've noticed, George, Yano Otmir still yet to come into the pit lane. The same goes for Danny Berejnay, Wilson Hughes, Will Lewis, and Esteban Pukki. The top 5 at the minute, throwing everything into this overcut. We know that Yano Otmir loves to go for the overcut strategy. We'll see if it works for him.
Yeah, Luke Smith having a very fine race at the moment as well. Has actually caught up with Benjamin Oconye as well. Moves on the table here. Duncan Hoffland going for a move on Brendan Lee. Of course, we saw Duncan overtaking Yoni Tormala earlier on. Alfie Butcher out of the race as well, as now we see Hoffland move ahead of Lee now into 12th. Otis Lawrence also making places. Alfie Butcher is out to the race too, as we now see Lawrence and Luke Smith coming together. Of course, in all that fracas and all the chaos here, Jed Norgrove on the back of Otis Lawrence. Luke Smith now occupying the same airspace as Benjamin Oconye, with Frederick Rasmussen further up the road as well. But as things stand, still Ronhaar effectively pit stops applied. He is your net leader, but how is this late stop from Yano gonna pan out?
Really not too sure if it's going to work out for Yano Otmir, because you just see the power that the undercut has had. However, after a few laps, your tyres do begin to decay, and then all of the drivers with just 2 lap fresher tyres than you going to be much, much quicker. And this is really amplified by the fact that Benjamin Oconye has now lost 3.4 seconds to both Thomas Ronhaar and Freddie Rasmussen. and he's only got 3 lap pressure, older tyres, sorry, and Luke Smith is all over the rear of Bench, and I think Otis Lawrence could also be sizing up a move, but it's going to be Bench Jabberconny off the exit of Ravazza 2. He'll be in dire straits, but can he pull one latest trick on Luke Smith and try and defend this position? Here they come, down in towards turn number 1. Luke Smith all over the rear of Bench Jabberconny, looking towards the outside line. The Hungarian going to be defending like a lion, but here comes Luke Smith. Can he make this move stick the long way round of the inside for the second part of Tamburello, and job done for Luke Smith there.
Yeah, fantastic move heading through Tamburello. Otis Lawrence not done yet either. He's going to try and hammer home against Ben Jabberconny, who went defensive at the same time. Looked like he might have tried and pulled out a move here on Luke Smith heading in towards Villeneuve, but I think it was more a defensive effort. Oh, Otis! Brilliant stuff! Looks from the outside, heading through. There's no room there. Very nearly got detoured onto the grass, and as a result, Duncan Hoffland has come in. They're going to bash wheels, heading through towards the Piratella. Hoffland through the inside, outside line for Otis. The Aston and the McLaren come together. Hoffland with an almighty send up the inside through Aqua Minerale. Duncan Hoffland is up to 9th place.
Wow, Otis Lawrence really opportunistic to try and go for that move. Just hasn't worked out for him. Duncan Hoffland, though, what a maneuver from him there. The Dutchman, criminally underrated in the esports scene at the moment, but he's really flexing his muscles here tonight. And George, I can say finally, Yano Otmir's into the pits.
Yeah, he certainly is. Thomas Ronhaar now is making his way through the final corner with no question, no doubt in anybody's mind. It's going to be Thomas Ronhaar in front as he makes his way across the line now to commence lap 19 of 32. Rasmussen in hot pursuit, but Otmir exiting out of the pits. Just how much time has that cost him? Luke Smith goes past. We got a little bit of a battle further down as well. Ben Jabberconny and Duncan Hoffland on the rise again. Outrageous! Outrageous! Here from the Aston Martin driver, who has just now battered past the Haas. Otis Lawrence asking similar questions. He's flirting with the rear on the Haas of Ben Jabberconny's car, but Duncan Hoffland up into 5th place. He started 6th. He's back where he was prior to the pit stop phase, and now he's on the rise. Next on his list is Luke Smith. Can he get past him?
And Otis still can't find this move on Bench Jabberconny. He's been stuck behind whilst other drivers from behind have been able to get through on the Haas car. It's been such a challenge for Otis Lawrence at this point to get through on the Hungarian driver, but he's all over the rear with 3 lap fresher tyres than Bench Jabberconny in towards Variante Alta. He's once again just sellotape to the rear of that Haas. He's right up the diffuser of Bench Jabberconny, but he can't find his way through, and this is really hampering the performance that Otis Lawrence has at the minute. Finally into the 3rd sector, he's going to look towards the outside line of Ravazza 1. Before the corner even comes, Otis Lawrence finally, George, has made that move stick.
Yeah, he's managed to make it happen. Oh, a plethora of cars getting caught up in the background. Goodness me. They tied up, and I think it was Yano in the middle of it as well. Jack West and Joni Tormel are part of it too. Yano now going wheel to wheel with West, as now on his last stint, of course, making the pit stop. He's on fresher tyres of anybody. He's bursting past 1. He's bursting past 2. In towards Tamburello. He's got the outside line against Joni Tormela and past the Finn, who's been part of the fold in F1 Esports since the very beginning. Now Yano has swept past him and into the top 10, but he needs an almighty run here with 12 laps to go.
And this is the masterclass that we have been waiting for from Yano Otmir, with the freshest tyres by such a huge margin to his rivals. There was a bit of a tangle in the final couple of corners, which unfortunately led to Brendan Lee going off the circuit. It's been a torrid day for the man who finished on the podium last time out in Portimao, and this is one to forget for the Alfa Romeo. But Yano Otmir, what a showing we are seeing from him, but he's still got, George, a lot of work to do. Jed Norgrove, Ben Jabberconny, Otis Lawrence, Duncan Hoffland, all of these guys, such a high caliber of competitors that he needs to get through, and it's just a matter of how quick can he do it. He's all over the rear of Jed Norgrove, and in towards the final few corners, he's already through.
Yeah, he's gone past Jed Norgrove now, 8th place, has hoovered it up in almighty style. Has got Ben Jabberconny coming up next. Into the pits comes Danny Berejnay, so Thomas Ronhaar will take the optimal lead of this race. But Otmir has been so quick on these fresh intermediate tyres. He's got Ben Jabberconny up next. He's going to take him on as well, heading down the home straight in towards Tamburello. We'll get it done way before the chicane, and is now into 6, and now hunting down after Otis Lawrence and taking a look at the lap delta as well. I can tell you this, Otmir has been faster than Otis 1 second per lap. That is the difference. 4 laps between 2 tyre sets, and Yano is faster a second a lap.
And George, I don't know if I'm being a bit hasty here and saying, but I think Jan Ortmeier might be the favourite to win this race. Thomas Ronhaar and Freddie Rasmussen, of course, have got immense amounts of time and track position over Jan Ortmeier here, but the rate that he's been catching and overtaking so many incredibly fast drivers, I just think Jan Ortmeier, he's got it in him to go all the way in this race. Of course, he was leading before the pit stops came, decided to go for the undercut, which has been old reliable, I think, for Yano Ortmeier. He's been so good at making these overcuts work and then finding the overtakes by just his sheer racing talent. And that doesn't go back to his raw ability in a sim rig. That's also how smart he is. He's got to be the most clever competitor on this field. He's all over the rear of Otis Lawrence, and he's on the precipice of finding his way back into the top 5.
Yeah, he's got every chance here. He's just pushing Otis Lawrence around this circuit so far. I'm just looking now at the very top because Freddie Rasmussen hovering all over the back here, as well as Thomas Ronhaar. These two still leading, though. No changes there. But Yano Ortmeier now immediately pouncing on Otis Lawrence, and is going to take 5th place away from the Welshman. Very smooth, very easy as well. Through Tamburello they go, and on the outset, they make their way around on lap 22, hunting down after Duncan Hoffland, and now he is only a precipice, a mere second away from breaking into the top 4.
Ortmeier on these fresher intermediate tyres. He's got 4 laps on both, on all of Thomas Ronhaar, Freddie Rasmussen and Duncan Hoffland. He's got 5 laps on Luke Smith, who made his undercut work to perfection. Now on the podium at the minute for Luke Smith. I wonder how long he's going to hold on to it, because Yano Ortmeier is catching at a rate of knots, and I've said that so many times, but it's the only way I can emphasize how quick Yano Ortmeier truly is on the circuit. Just look at that. When he made the move on Otis Lawrence, he was 1 second, 1.2, something off the back of Duncan Hoffland. He's now right at the diffuser, right on the gearbox of his fellow countryman, and he's all over the rear.
Yeah, 4 laps of wear separate Duncan Hoffland, and just look at the difference. Ortmeier down the inside, heading through towards Ravazza 1 and in towards Ravazza 2. He'll exit out of lap 22 into 4th place, and now an almighty charge for a podium. But there's quite an extensive gap between Luke Smith and, of course, those drivers up at the front end. Rasmussen now hunting down after Thomas Ronhaar. A gargantuan fight for the race lead is going on, but at the same time, we've got Yano Ortmeier chopping through the field. This has just kicked up an almighty storm, and I'm not just talking about the rain.
And I really don't know where this is going to go. There's been an incident down in turn number 1. That's Jack West, unfortunately, sent into a spin. It was such a good performance to get his way up the order, but unfortunately now he's going to lose a number of positions there, and it's been a bad day for Ferrari. Of course, it's Van Pookie caught up in a very early incident. Now Jack finding himself in a situation of his own, and without Nicholas Longate or Barry Burman in the fold today, Ferrari have fallen apart.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this, Rasmussen is haunting the rear wing on Thomas Ronhaar's car as they make their way out of Acqua Minerale, heading through now towards the Variante Alta. And then Luke Smith, who is being pressurised and punctured here by Yano as well. You can just see the difference in time gaps as well. I can tell you that Yano is 1.5 seconds quicker on that last lap than Luke Smith at this point. So that delta is going to be reined in pretty quickly, I can assure you. Now, the big question is when does Freddie Rasmussen pull the plug on Thomas Ronhaar? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, it's still early days yet. We've got more laps to come. What I will say is that what will favour Ortmeier at this point is if Ronhaar and Rasmussen start battling. Here comes Yano, though, for a podium at the very least. He's going to go wheel to wheel with Luke Smith. Surely he'll get this done smoothly and quickly. And once again, Polak's his way further forward. He's into the top 3 now. Podium on the table for the Flying Dutchman. And now he does need to fly because there is a win on the table. The question is, can he close up that 6.6 second gap? It's a possibility. But I will say this, the top 3 are matching in terms, near enough, maybe 4 tenths between them in terms of lap times. Ortmeier really needs to get his head down now.
Those tyres, though, for both Thomas Ronhaar and Freddie Rasmussen, 9 laps old at this point, are definitely on the cusp of falling off the cliff. You've seen Ben Chabaconyi last time by, and now Joost Noordijk this time by. Last time by as well, actually. They've both pitted, and they had 10-lap-old intermediate tyres. Thomas Ronhaar and Freddie Rasmussen are reaching that point. If they want any hope of winning this race, then they're going to have to try and go to the end. I think Yano Ortmeier definitely can stretch his inters all the way, and he's catching very, very quickly to the rear of Frederick Rasmussen. We're only on lap number 24 of 32, George, with 2/3 of the way through here. And when are we gonna see battling? I just don't know. How quickly is Yano gonna catch? He's been about a second quicker, I think, on this lap.
Yeah, well, he's looking at the time delta. Remember, of course, we've got 7 laps to go. At this stage, Yano is occupying that P3 place. He's knocked down the delta again to 5.4. If I look at the time set on the previous lap alone, Yano sets a 1:24.485, which is again a personal best here at this point, and is faster by nearly 1.5 seconds than Freddie Rasmussen. So there is a chance here for Yano, but he needs to maintain these levels consistently, and he needs to push. He's very nearly broken to within 5 seconds, so a great chance. Benjamin Coney going quicker than anybody, but ideally, in a perfect world, Otmir needs Ronha and Rasmussen to start squabbling.
See, Yano Otmir, of course, he was catching not as quick just 1 lap ago, and that's because, of course, he was fighting his way through traffic. But now the Flying Dutchman has all the clear air that he could hope for, and that is where we're going to see the pace truly get unleashed, and it's just going to be a battle of raw skill between all of these drivers. Can Thomas Ronha and Freddie Rasmussen defend from the Dutchman, who is on a charge? We'll have to wait and see, of course. George, I can tell you now, both Thomas and Freddie know if they start fighting, Yano Otmir is going to have no issue dispatching them and winning this race, and that is why for so many laps Thomas has led and Freddie has followed, and they've stayed in this position for so long at this point that Yano Otmir is going to have a difficult time catching up and overtaking, but he is getting there. He's now almost within 4 seconds of being on the back of Frederick Rasmussen, and we'll see what happens as we approach lap number 26.
Well, I can tell you once again, he is faster again by nearly 1.5. Not quite as good as it was before, but still lapping faster by over a second than the top 2. So he is still mustering in faster times. 4.1 at this point, but needs more, because obviously at this stage, Rasmussen and Ronha are in a world of their own right now. 4 seconds is still quite a substantial gap, and needs to go to work once again. A fastest lap here for Ben Jabo Conyi, as he ushers in a grandiose lap. Joost Noordijk has just gone purple in the second sector, but it's all about the front 2 here at this stage. Yano just struggling to break into that 4 seconds. He has done now. Joost Noordijk, as expected, fastest of all now, has taken that privilege off Ben Jabo Conyi, but at the top, it is Thomas Ronha, the Great Dane, Freddie Rasmussen, as he now makes his way through towards the final sector, and there's the tyre difference between Rasmussen and Otmir. Of course, Otmir is very fresh in comparison, and that is based, just look at the difference already. You can look at the lap counter, 7 laps accrued on Yano Otmir's tyres, and they're far greener, as you'd expect, than Rasmussen, who has got 11 laps on his. As we take a look now as the cars make their way through the final sector. Now, the lap times this time around are going to be very telling. I can tell you that Rasmussen and Ronha were pretty much matching, as you'd expect, through the course of that previous lap, a 25.4 from the pair of them on that occasion. Now, this was the first time where Otmir did not go a second faster than the front 2. He only went approximately 7/10 quicker. So he is losing time here now.
Yeah, and at this point, I'm seeing a lot of talk about the ERS situations. Thomas Ronha's on 56% as I see it now. Freddie has 70, and then Yano Otmir has 60. So at the moment, Thomas Ronha should be the weakest driver out of these 3. But Freddie Rasmussen is just doing all he can to stay behind, because if they start fighting, as previously mentioned, Yano Otmir is going to catch. But now that the Dutchman isn't catching at quite the rate that we saw, is he going to do enough to take the win? We'll have to wait and see. I can actually see on the telemetry as well, George, he's got the yellow fuel light, so Yano Otmir will not make it to the race, to the end of this race in terms of the amount of fuel that he's got. It means he's going to be quicker, because of course his car is lighter than both Thomas and Freddie's, but he will have to fuel save at some point if he wants to make it to the end, as he's just about to notch himself within 3 seconds from Freddie.
Yeah, everything currently set against him, the fuel levels as well as the tyre degradation that will surely be hampering him at some point. He is still continuing to persevere to try and rein in that delta. Don't forget, folks, to leave your votes as to who you think is going to win this race here at Imola. It's down to 2 cars at the very front at this point. Can Yano Otmir join the fold? Let us know who you think is going to win this one. Freddie Rasmussen, though, switching all over the back of Ronha, threatening again as now the Dutchman looks to defend. The Great Dane looking down the inside as they head through Villeneuve, asking major questions here, Freddie Rasmussen, and taunting almost the Dutchman, Thomas Ronha, as they make their way up through Tosa.
Thomas Ronha has done good to defend there from Freddie Rasmussen without sacrificing too much time to Yano Otmir. Yano still not within the 3-second window to the leaders at this point. So now, as the laps progress, it's looking more and more likely that it's either Thomas Ronha or Freddie Rasmussen to win this race. But if Freddie is able to find a move on Thomas and is able to make it stick, and then they have a fight or whatever, Yano Otmir then can close up to the pair of them. So it's just a matter of waiting at this point, George, because something is going to happen at some point which is either going to benefit both Thomas Ronha and Freddie Rasmussen, or it's going to benefit Yano Otmir, who has now found his way within 3 seconds of Freddie. So he's still catching the Dutchman, but not quite enough here.
Yeah, he's now only 0.4 a lap quicker, which will not be enough to close up. Close enough indeed to even be on the precipice of making a move. So there's a lot to find for Yano, and with the fuel levels being stacked against him here, Freddie Rasmussen with a great chance of taking the lead of the race here. Goes side by side here with Thomas Ronha and takes it away, snatches it off the Dutchman, and Thomas Ronha will have to stay in second, maybe wait his turn. We've still got a small matter of 3 laps if you include this one still to go. But Rasmussen now taking the lead in what could be a back-to-back race win for the Red Bull team.
Also, when Danny Bergenet's way last time by, as Thomas Ronha gets very close to the back of Freddie Rasmussen, sacrificing a bit of time off the exit of Tosa Corner. But it could be 2 for 2 for the Red Bull outfit. Of course, Danny Bergenet, I'll get that name right eventually, George, is not in the fight for the win here this evening. So it's all relying on Freddie Rasmussen to take the victory ahead of Thomas Ronha and Yano Otmir, who now, George, really isn't catching, and that yellow fuel light is constant. He is not going to make it to the end on the current pace, but Freddie Rasmussen gets a penalty.
Penalty for Freddie Rasmussen at the very ante alta has really changed the game here and has opened up the door for Yano Otmir, because he is within 3 seconds of Thomas Ronha in second place. The door is wide open for Otmir to take second, but still that fuel is a burning issue at this point. Now, I will say this, Yano has got 2 warnings against his name, 1 more, and he gets a penalty as well. So there we have it. It's not all said and done yet. Thomas Ronha, 0 warnings, 0 penalties at this stage. So there we have it. Ronha in a very good position here, but Rasmussen in a position where he needs to put the burners on if he wants to stand a single chance of winning this race.
And Thomas Ronha can't afford to sit back and relax knowing that Freddie Rasmussen has the penalty, George, because these penalties can be appealed to the stewards. If you've got a wrongful warning, then you can get it removed and have your penalty taken away. So Thomas Ronha, if he wants to guarantee that he wins this race, he's got to do it on circuit with now 2.5 laps left to go in this race. Freddie Rasmussen has got that penalty to his name. There's still hope for him that he wins this race, but he's doing all he can to pull away from Thomas Ronha and Yano Otmir. I think maybe that's the priority for Freddie, to get 3 seconds on Yano's head so he can stay at least in second position.
Well, that's the only way he can do it, because if the penalty sticks and they don't reverse it, then obviously that's what he's got to think about, is if they don't take the penalty away, if they don't remove the warning and therefore remove the 3 seconds, he has got to consider that factor. So Yano, in the meantime, has closed the gap. It's now 2.2 in between he and Thomas Ronha, but we're now coming in towards the penultimate lap of the race. It's Freddie Rasmussen who's leading. Thomas Ronha still remains half a second in behind him here. Yano's managed to rein it into 2.1 at this stage. Let's look at the last laps. Again, a consistent 0.3 difference, 2.5 to 0.3 between Yano and Thomas Ronha at this point. Freddie lapping a little quicker this time around, but that's only due to the mere fact that he's trying to break the 3 seconds. But with Ronha's ERS levels, that's going to be a very tricky thing to do.
We'll have to wait and see. Of course, now Freddie has actually got 2 warnings sort of to play with. If he knows that penalty is not going to get removed, why not try? It's not the most ethical thing, but why not try use those warnings whilst they are available to you to try and pull out as much time as you can. But that being said, the gap between himself and Yano Otmir is 2.7 seconds here. So Yano Otmir, if he continues at this pace on the back of Freddie Rasmussen, there's nothing Freddie can do that will lose him that will keep him second position at this point. But it's looking like this race, George, might be over already.
Yeah, it could well be. I think at this point on the penultimate lap, while Freddie is still out in front, Ronha in touching distance. Of course, with Rasmussen with that penalty, he will forfeit the top spot, with Ronha taking that second place, and Otmir at this point with a very great chance of taking second at the very least, as we now see them swoop through the final Ravazza section, and they'll cross the line for the final time here at Imola. As they do so, Rasmussen will take them through. The Great Dane, who has driven superbly up until the penalty was planted upon him here, overtaking Ronha earlier on, but then in the same lap alone at the Variante Alta to be subjugated with a 3-second time penalty, which we're not sure will stick, because of course if it is a warning that was made in error. Duncan Hoffland going for a move for fourth place as well, around the outside here of Luke Smith. Fabulously done, even though he has a penalty to his name as well, but we never know, maybe he'll get a warning removed, I'm not sure, but he has got 4 against his name, as we now see them make their way through Villeneuve. Up at the very top though of the order, Rasmussen out in front. The question is, can he hold on to it?
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I'm looking at the telemetry of Yano Otmir. He's now flashing red, so he is not going to be able to catch at all. And I wonder if he is actually going to lose that 3-second window that he needs to get himself ahead of Frederick Rasmussen, who has done a fantastic job here this evening. He's done so well to fight with both Thomas Ronha and Yano Otmir. It's a shame that it has to end this way for him, but at least, George, he can take solace in the fact that he is going to win here on circuit.
Yeah, Frederick Rasmussen, say what you want. To tell you what, the talent that this young man has is certainly incomparable. One of the hottest prospects historically in F1 esports, one of the biggest contenders, and truly a soldier for the Red Bull Racing outfit. He will cross the line though, but he will not take victory here at this stage, because Thomas Ronha will. After Rasmussen laid claim to a penalty, Yano Otmir takes second as well.
Wow.
Due to the penalty, 8 thousandths was all that separated between third and second. But here at this point, Duncan Hoffland with his penalty drops down to 7th place. Luke Smith in 4th. Otis Lawrence in 5th. Danny Berejnay up to 6th. A great recovery drive from Danny Berejnay. Red Bull occupying 3rd and 5th here in this timing tower. Otis Lawrence, not quite sure what happened there. He actually DNF'd. Not quite sure why or how, because I'm pretty sure he crossed the line. But Thomas Ronha taking victory here at this point. His first PSGL race win of the season, following up a stellar run in F1 esports. It didn't quite work for him at Portimao, but returns this time around on top and in great style. Freddie Rasmussen will be kicking himself a little bit though after that issue around the Variante Alta, Dan.
And Yano Otmir just about taking P2 from Freddie Rasmussen by 8 thousandths of a second. Yano Otmir was able to secure P2 in this race. I think what happened is that Yano ran out of fuel on the finish line, and that's why he lost so much speed in comparison to Freddie. So Freddie, you're definitely right, he's going to be kicking himself about how this race has panned out, but I definitely think he can still take pride in the fact that he drove incredibly well against 2 of the best Dutch drivers that we have on this grid, Thomas Ronha and Yano Otmir. The pair of them, so incredible, and it's so great that Freddie Rasmussen, after so long being in F1 esports, is still taking the fight to these guys. Yeah,
one of the strangest races I think we've seen, to be fair, with penalties being the huge impact, I think, drawing a huge impact on every race we have had here in PSGL. But once again, we have seen Thomas Ronha go to the top in great style. Again, a victor. Yano Otmir, whatever you say, regardless of strategy, coming second in those circumstances was stellar. And it will be a P3 to P2. So an improvement in terms of final classification positioning. Freddie Rasmussen in 3rd after the penalty. I think he'll be kicking himself. 4th place for Luke Smith after starting 7th. Impressive as well for Danny Berejnay, who started where he did. Remember, 10th place and moved up to 5th. Great display from him. Joni Tormela, a great drive from him as well. Started 15th, now up to 7th, ahead, just behind Duncan Hoffland, who's in 6th. Jed Norgrove in 8th, with Alvaro Caraton in 9th, Will Lewis in 10th, Ben Chabo-Connie in 11th, Wilson Hughes in 12th, as well as Istvan Pukki down in 13th, Jake Benham 14th, Jack West 15th, Brendan Lee, Shoddy Day in 16th, Joost Noordijk 17th. Otis Lawrence, not quite sure what happened there. We'll have to see whether his place gets changed. Alfie Butcher in 19th, and Ruben Pedreño in 20th place. But a lot of drama there, Dan. A lot of questions to ask. I'm sure we'll speak to a few of the drivers after that particular race. But like I said, a strange one, I think, without any shadow of a doubt, where penalties took over towards the end.
Yeah, it's a shame that it had to end that way and that Freddie Rasmussen really didn't have any fight against Thomas Ronhaar. And Thomas Ronhaar knew that. I think he just decided that Freddie's got these penalties, and so I'm just going to sit back, make sure that I take this win. It's a shame it had to end that way, but that is just what happens. And Thomas Ronhaar didn't get a single warning, as you said, throughout that entire race. So all credit goes to Thomas Ronhaar after, of course, winning in Bahrain in esports, now taking his first victory of the season here in PSGL. I'd imagine, George, he's going to be championship leader, surely.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Berejneh has done well to recoup some points for himself at this point. And you know, credit to obviously his teammate Freddie for scoring some big ones as well. But Thomas Ronhaar, again, back to the forefront. I think, you know, scooping up the 25 is going to be vital for their campaign. And they might look back at Imola at being a real difference maker to their season, but we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, though, there's still a whole season, a whole plethora of tracks still to come. If you haven't seen it as well, folks, please make sure, of course, you join the PSGL Discord. There is a link there in the live chat, so if you want to come and be part of the Discord, you can. You can join the Discord. If you want to race, you can also get the latest news on when sign-ups open up, etc. And you can get the biggest league in league racing, to say the least. So there we go. Let us know as well in the live chat as to who your driver of the days were. We'd like to hear from you on that as well. Dan, who really impressed you?
Oh, you know what? I actually don't know. I was kind of just focusing on the leaders for the most part, but I want to shout out Duncan Hoffland in this race because I think he showed a fantastic spirit to keep his fight in with the top 5 for the majority of it. It's a shame that he had a penalty to his name, and that's why he ended up losing time, but he is criminally underrated. I've said it a few times on this stream. I do definitely think that Duncan is a very underrated driver, and all credit has got to go to his graft. I know how much time he really does put into this game and how he pushes himself to get better whilst also building a fantastic brand for himself on social media. So me personally, I'll go with Duncan Hoffland as my driver of the day. Yeah,
I think that's a fair reflection. We take a look at the poll stats. Yano Opmir was given the 46% of the vote. Thomas Ronhaar with 34%. Obviously Ronhaar taking the victory, so well done if you voted for him. Frederick Rasmussen, 19%. Of course, was on for the win, but the penalty crucified him. He's bound to be kicking himself down.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a real shame that the penalties around Imola, especially in the wet, are so difficult to manage. So it's sad that it had to end that way with the penalty, of course, affecting the end result. And definitely, if that didn't happen, I'd imagine, George, we'd have seen a fantastic battle.
Yeah, I think we would have done. We actually have Thomas Ronhaar with us in the commentary box as well. Thomas, congratulations on the race win. Obviously, it wasn't generally done in the style you perhaps would have preferred, because you would have probably preferred to do it out on track. But with Freddie getting a penalty, it obviously opened up your opportunity, and you managed to clamber on it with both hands. And it was a great qualifying session from yourself as well.
Yeah, first of all, thank you, George, thank you, Dan, for the compliments. Yeah, qualifying to start with, when I think as really as we could. Topped Q1, not sure if I topped Q2, and Q3 I got my running that I wanted towards the end. So to start on the front row, especially in the wet, is very crucial, as you may have seen, with the amount of chaos that's in the midfield. But yeah, once the race started to sort of evolve, I realized I was on quite low wing compared to the likes of Yano and Freddie. So they were about the blasting the batteries on the main straight to get past me. So once Freddie got past me on the end stage, it was near impossible to catch up because of the grip difference there was between the wing level of the cars. Yeah, Freddie's pen was, I guess, just a lucky charm for me that happened. He definitely deserved to win today with the pace he had. But yeah, I went my way this time, and very happy to win my first time in 2024.
Yeah, it's a positive response. I mean, Portimao wasn't ideal, I think, for you personally. I mean, it was great for the team in the sense that obviously Brendan Lee was one of the strongest finishers in that one. Of course, you had to forego the position to him through the course of that race, but this was an opportunity for you to really show what you could do here in PSGL, and following up in the perfect way from your F1 Esports victory to come back and take a victory in PSGL. Obviously it's a title you haven't won yet, and every driver likes to win a PSGL title prior to going into F1 Esports because it really does set the tone. Is that something you're chasing?
Yeah, obviously, trying to win the championship is very important for my confidence as well. Of course, last year with Barry, had a very good fight. Just about didn't get on top with a warning that costed me the championship. But yeah, definitely it was enjoyable, that fight. But yeah, like I said, I'm hungry again for this year to get the title again. And yeah, we'll see towards the end. It's still a long season ahead, I believe. I don't know how many races we're going to be doing, but it definitely isn't in the end yet. So yeah, looking forward to it, and I guess we just have to wait how it goes.
Yeah, I think obviously number of races is very much dependent on the F1 esports season, but obviously a great run on your part again today. And looking ahead to the rest of the championship, obviously it's arguably, I think, based on what we've saw, especially in Q1 where the deltas were so small, I definitely think we've reached the point where we're at our most competitive level in F1 esports now, especially where it comes to qualifying. Yes. We saw it today, top 9 in Q1, all separated by 75 thousandths of a second. Just talk us through that, Thomas. I mean, there really is a fine margin between success and failure, isn't there?
Yeah, I think, like many people know, F1 esports is, in my opinion, the most competitive championship in esports there is. If you see those gaps at the front, one mistake will drop you to basically getting out in Q1 or getting out in Q2. So you need to be on it straight away, especially with the mystery tracks. You don't have time to practice it. Portimao was a very good example where literally nobody, apart from me, I would say, actually done the track. I've done a charity race there for mental health, but that was at 5 a.m. midnight, so I can't really remember much from that. But yeah, like I said, the mystery tracks, I quite like it. It definitely goes to show how close they can get when no one's practicing. And I guess today showed as well the gaps haven't changed compared to the start of the game and last game as well. I think, if I remember correctly, the closest I've ever seen anything was, I think, Zandvoort Q1 last year in esports, were separated by a tenth the whole field.
Minute.
So yeah. I mean, it just goes to show how tough it is to drive in this tier, in this championship, and that's good for me as well to keep myself improving. And like I said, we just have to wait how it goes towards the end.
Sorry, say that again.
We just have to wait how it goes towards the end of the championship. If it keeps on like this, I'm sure the gap will stay the same, and if not closer. So we just have to be on it every time.
Yeah, you certainly will. You're going to have to be on it. And I tell you what, from that performance, I'm sure you'll go on to do great things again. Ron Hart, congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Sorry about that, folks. Dan, do a bit of talking. I'm struggling.
Oh dear. I mean, what can I talk about really about
anything.
This race? But I suppose, wow. Okay, so Thomas Ronhart, of course, saying that he really does enjoy this sort of mystery track system that we have. I can see George on I've got the YouTube stream up. He's just dying at the minute. I'm sure you can all see.
I've just come back from illness. I spent 3 days bedridden with some kind of fever. So this is my first broadcast back. So I do apologise, everybody, if I struggled or sounded off tonight. But yes, I do apologise. I did see a couple of comments in the live chat. I may have sounded a little nasally. I've only just come back, guys, so it's been a struggle over the last few days. So, yeah, we are back. We are in business. The voice is working somewhat, but yes. But we just heard from a very resolute and obviously very, I think, level-headed and well-spoken Thomas Ronhart, Dan, and a fabulous result today, and I think a grand example of what he is capable of. I mean. Yeah. For a driver that's so young, very much like Otis Lawrence, for all the ability he has done, it's a very different matter when you're a young person and you're able to perform as level-headed and in the right manner. I mean, the amount that he has had thrown at him over the past year, I'd arguably say that is, just as great to his performance, a credit to his performance as much as what he does on track. Is it a case that because he's so patient, that he is a cut amongst the best, or a cut among the best, in terms of the current grid?
I think you're absolutely right, because what I find is in sort of lower level league races, and this isn't to like bash anyone that I've commentated on before, but typically drivers, they really do like to just go for these really aggressive early moves, and that doesn't win you the race on like lap number 7 or whatever. And so having the ability to wait, it's the most important thing. And Thomas Ronha, you're certainly right, is cut amongst the best of having that patience to be able to keep with the driver for so long throughout the whole stint of a race and remain in the fight, and then once the time is right, go for the move. That is what really sets him apart from all the others.
Yeah, it certainly does. And he is not going to be alone, though, because we're going to have many more championship fights, I can assure you, many great race battles throughout the course of this season. And with the likes of Freddie Rasmussen just entering the fold, Yano Otmir right in the midst of it too, plenty of other names that are certainly looking to paint themselves right at the top. Could we see Otis Lawrence even scratch the surface right at the very top? You'll find out soon enough, folks. But first of all, make sure, if you haven't done so already, to check out the social medias. First of all, hit that subscribe button underneath here on the PSGL live stream. Obviously, you can go down and check out Premier Sim GL, or Premier Sim Gaming Leagues as it is known here on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button as well to stay up to date with all the streams when they go live. If you want to head across as well to social media at Premier Sim GL for the PSGL Twitter, you can do. It's the same tag as well for Instagram as well as TikTok, you name it. Highlights get posted to here on this channel as well, so you can stay up to date with those. If you want to check me out as well, you can at George Morgan TV on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you name it. It's always the same, George Morgan TV. And Dan, do you want to share your social tag, if you please?
Just got one. It's on Twitter. It's Danfield F1_. I've just reached 1,300 followers, so thank you to everyone if you've gone over there from the stream onto my page. Very much greatly appreciated. But yes, I'm only on Twitter. It is Danfield F1_.
There you go, you heard the man. So, folks, it was the day for Thomas Ronha to take victory. Of course, Freddie Rasmussen will feel slightly robbed after getting penalised at the Variante Alta, but don't fear, we will be back again for the third round. So make sure you stay tuned. We'll see you next week. Take care, folks. All the very best. Goodbye.
Desperately trying to hang on. He's got the inside. Up here is through on the left hand side. Pumps the apex, gets on the power nicely, and that is job done. Yano Otmir now to the last couple of corners now. His finest drive, his greatest drive, and he's done it at the Circuit of the Americas. He returns to the top step of the podium. Once again, the GOAT is back. Yano Otmir wins the US Grand Prix in a stunning Grand Prix.